Hey guys, welcome back to the Black Ibis Social Club. Another fine day in the Low Country. Tonight at the famous clubhouse, I've got Mr. Koltin Scott, a Substacker, writer, and all-around awesome dude. And of course, Mr. Fisto Sobani. What's up, guys?
Hello there, sir. Good to see you.
Hey, man.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me on, man.
Welcome. Tonight we're recording a little bit later in the day than we usually do. It's dark outside, and for some reason, of course, it's gotten cold again in South Carolina. So it's gone from being 80 something to almost 90 degrees last week to kind of a chilly, windy day. So how you guys been?
Over here,
Been good.
yeah, we're good. I'm over here in Texas, hour earlier than y'all. It's been raining a lot over here. We've been getting spring early.
Nice. Yeah, Florida's probably
Florida's
always
back to
perfect.
Florida's back to summer. It was actually hot today. This week's gotten a little hot. Stepping out into the morning air, and I'm going, "Oop, it's gonna be a hot one."
How
I'm getting
hot?
back to
How hot?
easily in the 80s. I'm gonna say probably
80s.
high 80s. Yeah. I'm down pretty far south. So I'm at like the north I'm at the northern edge of what used to be the Everglades.
Cool,
Yeah,
cool.
So
he's actually on a raft from Cuba, slowly
yeah,
floating this way,
yeah.
Um,
I still get to say some of my funnest things as I'm just like kids. You guys have any idea how easy it is to get to Cuba from where we are? Like,
He's like a leftover from Alpha 66, the CIA operation or
yeah,
something like
just we're in the
that.
swamp, all right. Like you're an hour drive from the coast. Just grab a boat. You're there before anyone even knows you're gone, and then you can go do things. You can bring those things back here. We can make a buck. It'll be great. Don't worry about it.
right. Well, what's cool about tonight's episode, and like I said, I don't like to call it an episode. It's more like tonight's conversation is that Colton, unlike a few of our previous guests recently, he's not a huge guy. He's not a huge Substacker. He doesn't have 10,000 followers or 1,000 hours of recorded podcasts like our last guest Kevin did, and those guys are like, and one of the points of these episodes is that we really just want to kind of have everybody on. It doesn't, you don't have to be like, oh, I'm the big name podcaster or something like that. I just want to talk to people. I just want to be like, hey, I want to get to know you a little bit. So, Colton, tell me about yourself, man. Introduce yourself to our awesome audience, which you're a part of because I know you're a longtime listener yourself.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I just bumped into y'all, just listened to y'all's podcast or whatever. I was actually like lurking around Fisto when he started hanging out with you, and then y'all started doing the podcast together. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna listen to Fisto and whoever this guy is,
Whoever this guy.
It's okay.
because I was kind of new to the uh Substack social scene too. What we really bumped into each other with the whole Cats War thing. What's his name? He
Oh,
recently came back.
Jonathan
John.
Katz, yeah, the
Yeah,
whole
yeah, yeah,
Substackers Against Nazis thing. Oh my God,
yeah,
that
is
that
he
was funny
back?
to see his name. He popped up for a post or two, and then everybody was like, "John, shut up, go away."
yeah.
Yeah,
Although that's I
He,
don't know if
he
that's
actually,
accurate, but that's my headcanon.
I've
yeah,
been off of Substack because I've been playing DayZ, and I've just basically been getting repeatedly murdered on that video game over and over and over. And it's like a video game that masochistic, like sadomasochistic sociopaths designed. Like it's like a zombie apocalypse game, and it's a hyper realistic survival game. And you kind of start off as like a naked person in freaking some former Soviet republic, and I'm sitting there like, cool, okay, I gotta find something to wear before I freeze to death. And then I drank some water, and of course I got cholera, so I'm throwing up every 5 minutes. And I'm like finally getting some stuff. I see these two guys like just gunfighting each other. So I sneak up on them, and I'm sitting there like, yeah, hell yeah, these guys are gonna kill each other. I'm gonna steal their stuff. And one of them drops dead, and the other one's like bleeding to death, limping. So I run up there and I beat him to death with my brass knuckles, And as I'm looting him, and he's got all this cool like Kevlar and like a AK-47 and stuff on him. I'm like, hell yeah, I'm scored. And then I throw up on myself and die from cholera.
Bruh.
That's the DayZ
That's
experience.
messed up.
Is
So
it horrible that my next thought was Black Ibis Social Club DayZ
yeah, we should do
server?
that. You know what's funny? Like today, I came home from work. I was like, I'll play a little bit before I record the podcast, before my wife and kid get home from school. And I'm sitting there and I get all this cool loot and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I got a good run going. I got a good run. I catch some fish. I like make a little campfire in the woods. I'm like cooking fish. And these two dudes roll up on me and they're like, hey man, give us all your stuff. And I'm like, so I tried to lunge at him with my bone knife that I made out of like some human bones I found on the ground. The dude shotgunned me to the face, and I'm like, "Well, there goes my day. I'm done. I just spent 2 hours and I just got murdered and looted." I was like, "All right, masochism.
Cool,
Play
cool.
later tonight."
I'll have a server rule where at some point in the evening, Fisto will simply betray one of you,
Yeah, just like,
and I'll never say who or when. Just at one point, there will be violence.
the problem is, it's
Just
like
keep it fresh.
you spawn in random places on the map, so like by the time you get to each other, and there's no like in-game map or anything like that, you have to use like navigation. Like you have to be like, okay, it's like the river goes west to east, so you gotta follow the river. If you're
Yeah.
following it, you're following east. You're like, and then it gets dark and it's raining and you're freezing to death, and then you stumble. You're like, oh, cool, look at this military base over there, and you walk over there and you die of radiation poisoning because there's like a radiation leak, and you're like, this this pisses me off. The whole time zombies are trying to eat you. But yeah, that's what I've been doing. So I've been avoiding all this Substack kind of nonsense with the weekend conversation. Um,
Would you say it's like Dark Souls but with zombies?
yeah, it's actually worse than Dark Souls because Dark Souls is like, if you don't really lose your gear when you die, right? Like you lose all your
Yeah.
little. I was playing a lot of Dark Souls like a month ago, and I was playing not Dark Souls, the new one, Elden Ring, and that
Yeah, yeah,
one's
yeah.
it's more of like a Twitch skill game. Like you kind of have to have like the twitchy skills. This one is more like I need to make smart decisions and not run into a house where somebody just put a tripwire, because the zombies aren't really the scary part. They can kill you if you like see there's too many on you.
Yeah.
It's the freaking humans that are horrible, like this dude. Like I'm walking up to this dude and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna let him live. He's got nothing. He was holding like a monkey wrench, and I'm just walking and I got some early gear going, and this dude does a flip me off emoji, emote at me, and I'm like, okay, you fool, and I just ran over there and just macheted him, and I'm like, I was like, I'm gonna take your bones and make fish hooks out of them, you know. And then of course somebody comes up behind me and snipes me from like some freaking police station like 2 blocks away, and I'm like, cool. But it's fun. I like being miserable. It's a very Eastern European feeling
I was
game.
about to say it
Yeah.
sounds like a very Romanian thing. Like I met a new friend today. I turned his face into a hat.
Yeah, it's like my wife's like, man, how are you playing this? And even though she's like addicted to watching me play, she won't play it. She like tried it for a minute, and she's like, nope, too stressful. She's like, too stressful. I can't do it. I'm like, come on, play with me. She's like, no, no. But so let's see. The big event of this past weekend, of course, was the Super Bowl. Did you guys watch the Super Bowl?
No, I did not.
Nope.
Okay,
I
so what'd you
I
do
watched
instead?
I listened to the Assassins musical, which is by Stephen Sondheim. My
Hmm.
my my wife introduced it to me. And I really enjoyed it. The music's really great. The premise is really great. And there's just some laugh out loud moments of like, why'd you do it, John? Bad reviews. It's just great. So that's what I did instead of watching the Super Bowl was listen
Nice.
to a musical.
I'm not familiar with that one. My favorite
It's
musical.
funny.
Uh, well, I think that when it comes to film musicals, like musicals that are on as movies, my favorite one is Grease. I really think Grease is great. Now, in my opinion,
Yeah, that's a classic.
Yeah, Grease is a great one.
so I'm gonna tell you guys something about Grease real fast.
All right, all right. Hit me.
You know, I'm sure you guys, I've heard those media literate types talk about the male gaze. right?
The male gaze.
You heard
I
about
have
that
one of those
before?
Okay.
personally. I own several
Right.
male gazes.
So,
And,
and like a lot of media courses, media conversations, you'll hear the male gaze discussed, right? And
Hmm.
it's actually it's a real thing. I think it makes perfect sense. And the idea behind the male gaze is that the camera is from the viewpoint of a male, right? So in if the cinematographer and the director of a film are males and they're straight males, they tend to male gaze on female bodies in a certain way, do sensual shots going from down to up, that type of thing, right? And
yeah,
it's, I think it's fair social commentary, right? It's not like a
sure.
woke thing, right?
Yeah.
Now, Greece is a perfect example of this because as males, we probably have a hard time noticing the male gaze in film. And the reason is because
Hmm.
one, we're males, and all the
Yeah.
cinematographers tend to be males, and all the directors tend to also be, overall males, right? So most movies are from a male perspective, even if it's a female main character. Visually, it's from a male perspective.
Sure.
Now, Grease is a great way to illustrate the idea of the gaze in film because it is hands down the most homosexual male gaze of any movie in history. Right? If
More
you
so than Top Gun?
more so than Top Gun,
Because
more
like
so.
that's that one volleyball scene pretty much has
Right, right. But
maximum.
The old one or the new one?
No, the old one, obviously. The old one.
I've
The
never
old
seen
one,
Oh,
the
of
okay,
new one,
course.
okay.
right? If you
No, I
watch
haven't seen it.
if you watch Grease, which I actually watched recently, it is so the cinematographer was homosexual, the director was homosexual. Basically, Kaneki, he was a gay guy, right? A bunch of so if you watch the movie and you realize that you're looking at through the eyes of a gay male, the movie makes perfect sense because it does all the traditional shots that would be done on a woman on John Travolta or on the dude's
Huh.
jeans or on the dude, like it
Noted.
does panning shots, crotch shots, you know? And all the guys are very sexualized if you watch the movie. They're very like attractive and they're wearing tight pants and they're like, they're very while the females are very unsexualized in that movie. They're all either frumpy and kind of dumpy or tomboyish, right? The most sexualized female in the movie, which is what's her name, the one that's pregnant in the movie, a
Yeah.
Hmm.
spoiler, right? Um, she's tomboyish, right? She's very, very tomboyish and also in a very homosexual gaze kind of way. But I always thought it was funny because it's such a great example of illustrating that whole concept, you know? But and then
Yeah.
the other musical that's not, I don't think it's ever been made into a movie is the baseball one, Angels in the Outfield. No, not Angels in the Outfield. The one with Satan where he makes a deal with the devil.
Yeah, I
Um,
don't know that one.
The one where Satan makes the deal with himself?
no, okay, it's called Damn Yankees.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that
It's a
one.
really good one. The plot of Damn Yankees is you got this older couple. They're in their retirement age, and it's a man, and he's kind of a grumpy Archie Bunker kind of dude, and he's got his nagging kind of wife, and
Mhm.
he's watching the Yankees, and he's like, God, I would do anything to my
Oh,
life.
I
My
see.
life sucks. I wanted to be like a baseball player. I would do anything to be like at the World Series as a Yankee or something like that, right?
Right. Yeah.
And
Hmm.
poof, Satan appears and he's like, "Hey, how about I make a deal?" And he
Hey.
agrees to do it. And
So Satan is an agent of the Yankees, is what you're
yeah,
trying to tell me.
basically, right?
All
He's
right.
he's a he's a
I feel like that's very, very
perfect
canon.
sense. And he
Yeah, makes
basically
sense.
like if I'm remembering correctly, he basically makes a deal and he becomes young. He becomes a young man,
Ah,
and he is um now a like the star player for the Yankees or
huh.
something like that. Like he's very good. He's a baseball player, a
Yeah.
pro baseball player.
It's actually how it works. That's actually how it works.
Right. But he misses his wife. And what he ends up doing is he ends up he doesn't go back in time, it's in the present. And he ends up becoming he going to his own house and like renting a room from his wife, who's now like a widow because she's like, I don't know what happened to my husband. He just disappeared, never came home one day, you know?
Uh-huh.
And so she's like he's renting, he's basically this young man living with this old woman that's his wife, but she doesn't know because he's like bewitched by the devil. And
Right.
he
Huh.
realizes that he sold, he gave away something good for just temporary fame. And there's a famous like demoness character that's like this like sultry kind of sexy demon girl that tries to seduce him, but she's trying to get her
Ah,
soul
my
back
favorite.
also. It's a really good like
Huh.
moral kind of musical. But back to the Super Bowl. People always there's a
Back to the homosexual gaze.
yeah, back to the
With
Super
Super
the,
Bowl.
Bowl.
Taylor
they're
Swift.
always tackling each other and all that crap.
Yeah,
You know,
so
just real quick before we go back to the Super Bowl, it strikes me as funny because like I remember watching Grease and I remember just not vibing with it. Like not vibing with it, but just I'm thinking back to what you said and I'm like, oh, not gay. Perfect.
right.
Just yeah, yeah, okay. I mean, I appreciate it. I mean, I love the costuming. I think it's a funny movie. Like it's all, it's classic,
It's got
but
some great songs too.
no, all that stuff flew right over my head. Just whoop. So, All
All
right.
right, all right. To a double step back, have y'all ever played The Forest?
The Force.
First double step back in podcast history.
Yeah, it's
Fantastic.
a
No, I've not heard of this. What is it?
it's a horror game. Like like they have two games now. They just released Sons of the Forest or whatever.
Okay.
Oh, the Force.
But
I thought you
okay,
the
the
Force.
first one, yes, plane crash lands or whatever,
Yeah, yeah. It's a survival
and
game.
it's a
Yeah.
horror game. Yeah, and like you like cut apart the cannibals and eat them and crazy stuff like that.
So
Delicious.
my coworker. I always talk about the awesome girl that gets exasperated with me every day because I always ramble about stuff. She's a big gamer, like, and this girl, okay, I'm gonna shout out to her
Hmm.
because she occasionally listens to this. Um, she's like a 22-year-old girl, and she is a beast when it comes to gaming. Okay, like I'll like I'll hop on and play like Call of Duty with her, and she ruins it, man. Like you can't play with her because she's like she's in, like in the top of every single lobby, and if you're like grouped up with her, she ruins the game because like she puts you in like the sweatiest freaking lobbies. And like if I play solo Call of Duty, I'm like, oh cool, I can actually win every now and then. But if I play with her, I'm like my kills are like zero. I die as soon as I spawn, and she's at the top of the
Yeah,
freaking. And these young generation, I mean, you're young, you're a younger dude too. You're closer to her age than to mine. But these younger
I'm
dudes,
27.
these guys are beasts, man. Like I'm like I cannot, I don't have my twitch reflexes anymore. I need to go back in time when I was like a beast myself. But now these
Yeah,
guys are like, I can't play, I can't keep up. So I have to play survival games. But yeah, she plays a lot of the Forest and said it was really good. And I like my favorite genre of game is a survival game, which is kind of a newer kind of creation that wasn't big when I was in like my real true gaming era. I was a World of Warcraft guy
yeah.
when I was your age. Well, when I was younger than you, when I was like 21, I was there when World of Warcraft first came out, right? And like I played on day one of World of Warcraft, all right?
Yeah.
I
Trying to
only
think, when did survival games become a thing? When did those get? I'm
sometimes in my
thinking
dead zone.
like, is it wasn't like early Minecraft kind of like a survival thing? Like
Yeah,
with the things
Yeah,
that come and destroy your
I
stuff?
guess you
And
could say
isn't
Minecraft
that?
is a survival game.
I feel
yeah,
like
yeah.
that's when these things started popping up because people got this idea of like, oh, because I remember there was the zombie game for a long time, like Left 4 Dead and stuff like that, but it wasn't
Right.
really
Yeah,
survival. It was really just
A hack and
shoot 'em ups
slash.
or
Yeah,
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 yeah.
horde
yeah.
shooter. It wasn't survival with all the
And then there
crafting and
was
all.
Dead
It's got to be
Rising.
the crafting that did it. Yeah, it's probably Minecraft. Although one of our much more intelligent listeners will
Yeah, I'm
possibly correct
actually
me on
interested
that.
to see
But I
what
feel like
what
that's
the
probably it.
because okay, so I will, for all you younger listeners or gamer types, because I know there's a bunch of gamers that listen to this one because I always get comments on my gaming posts.
Mm.
I'm a pretty freshly returned guy to gaming, so my I started video gaming, I was back in the day. I started playing when well, my first video game system I've ever owned was a Sega Genesis, right? And that was in '91 when I moved to the United States. Now, growing up, behind the Iron Curtain, there was no Atari or anything like that. There was arcades occasionally, like you can go to, but it was far, far and few between, right? But when I moved to the US, we had a neighbor who was a younger guy. He like befriended my mom and dad, and we used to hang out. I mean, they're still friends after all these years. And this guy was like, he had a Genesis, a Super Nintendo, and he had like the Nintendo, you know? And he's like, hey, check this out. Blah, blah, blah. Welcome to America. Here's a Sega Genesis. And he got us one. And man, this guy had like every Genesis game that was out at the time. So my brother and I just, we did all the Genesis games. And then of course we graduated into Nintendo 64 when that came out, PlayStation, played a lot of that. Got a PlayStation 2 when that came out. And then I was in, around the PlayStation 2 era, I was in high school. And in high school, I didn't really game a lot. I was too busy being in a band and being like a punk rocker, degenerate kind of guy, and chasing girls and stuff. I didn't really have a lot of gaming in me in that era, and I didn't get back into
Yeah,
gaming.
like I would have picked up right when I would have picked up right when you where you left off. Like I was PS2 onward, basically.
Right, right, right. Because you're about that age. Well, after high school, I dated this girl for a few years, and her name was Sam, and she was like a proto gamer girl. She was a gamer girl before like the whole gamer girl thing existed, right? Like she
Hmm.
was like legitimately a gamer girl, and around that time, she's like, oh, I played EverQuest a little bit. I had a friend that got me into EverQuest, and I was like, okay, EverQuest is cool. I don't know if you guys ever heard of
Yeah.
EverQuest. EverQuest was like one of the
Mhm.
first, MMOs. I believe Ultima was really the first MMO, which I never played, but EverQuest was like the first big one from Sony. And I played that for a little bit, but that's right
Yeah, I
when
read an article.
people still play it, I think.
Sorry. Yeah, some people do. I read an article saying like somebody made like 100 grand from making cosmetics on EverQuest or something crazy like that. Cause,
Always a
I
good
cause
time.
choked.
yeah, that's like I was like, what? You could just like make gear on that? They're like, yeah. It's like I don't know. I never got into it or whatever, but
Yeah, so I
yeah.
actually worked at Blizzard Entertainment for a little bit. It wasn't anything cool. I just
Oh
worked
wow,
there.
cool.
And it was through the girlfriend because she had an older sister that basically Blizzard headquarters is in Southern California. And when WoW came out, they were hiring a bunch of people to do a bunch of different things. And I just did nothing. I did it was lame, right? I was like 20 years old. I was like, oh, I'm just going to start my art career. I'm in art school. I should, do that. And I hated working in video games. I was like, oh, hate it. I like left after like a year. I was like, I'm done. It paid well, but I did not enjoy the vibes and the environment. It wasn't for me. I have nothing ill to say about there. It weren't my
Yeah,
people. You know what I mean? But when World of Warcraft came out, man, it was huge. All right, I don't think none of it just that doesn't exist anymore because I remember when World of Warcraft the first what they call vanilla now, right, came out. Like you would go to Fry's, and Fry's was like a Best Buy in California. I don't know if you guys have Fry's where you are. It's like a Best Buy, but like the Best Buy is like the computer store for boomers and like normies, right? Fry's was
yeah.
this huge warehouse type chain, but it was like meant for like gamer computer guys for reals, right? Like it sold like I don't know if it even exists anymore, but it sold like motherboards and like video cards and like all the parts. If you wanted the
Okay.
weird stuff with like the lights and all that, RAM and all that stuff, like it sold all that stuff. Where Best Buy would sell like a Dell, like it didn't really sell,
Yeah.
right? Um, but so you go to Fry's and there was a line out the door at midnight. Like people camping out in a parking lot to pick up the first official disc of World of Warcraft. And it was wild. Like everybody played it, and you would go like I remember I used to work at a coffee shop also like around that time, and people would be like, oh hey, you play WoW? Oh cool man, what server are you on? And you like meet up and like you would have like guilds with like 40 people, but you met them all in real life. That was a cool thing, like
Yeah.
there are people that lived around you and stuff, and like everybody played, like people that weren't gamers played World of Warcraft, and that's what made it great. And it was also hard in the early days. It was like, you had to walk everywhere and that kind of stuff. It was a very fun game. But it's what's interesting in that era. I used to think that like everybody used to think that MMOs were like the wave of the future, right? Like that was what it was gonna like. massive multiplayer online RPGs. Every company was trying
Yeah,
to make one, and they just died off. I don't think there exist anymore MMOs.
I think like there's Japanese, well, not maybe they're like Korean or something like that, but like the Asian market still has them, I think, or
Yeah,
whatever.
because for a
Uh,
while there was tons of like American MMOs, and the whole thing just kind of like
the
died.
yeah, the craze, here recently or whatever has been, the battle royales or whatever, Fortnite.
Right.
Is that still the thing?
Yeah, that's still the thing.
Eh,
Yeah.
Oh,
kind of
fantastic.
like they might be dying out, like they might be just reaching their peak just now before they start going down. Maybe
Right.
Fortnite, maybe not because they're catering to the younger generations or whatever. So like whole
Yeah.
families can play, but
That's
like
that's
Apex and
so
some of these other
Fortnite
ones,
Fortnite is what got me back into gaming, right? Because after World of
yeah,
Warcraft, I joined the military. I didn't really play. I bought a 360 and I was like, man, I don't have time for this. I played it for like a little bit, then I joined the Navy and I was like 24. I was like, okay, I don't have time for this. And then most of my early Navy days, I was too busy to really sit down and play. And then like when I wasn't like doing stuff with the Marines and out there in the field or deploying, I was like out there deploying to the mean streets of Los Angeles, getting drunk and stuff. So like I wasn't really gaming. Um, but once I met my wife and I got married and we settled down, I got another. Like, I think I got a PS4 and I played a bit of Witcher and that kind of stuff. And I did not like that era of video games. I did not like the PS4 like Xbox One era where all the video games kind of follow the same pattern. You have this big open world map and you're this jerk and you go around and you go to like towers and you open the map and then you do some stupid quests and then you just rinse repeat. I hated that. Like I did not like that era of video.
The
so,
Assassin's Creed cut and
The
paste.
Assassin's Creed, yeah, the Assassin's Creed cut and
Yep.
paste.
okay,
You
the
know,
Far Cry cut and paste or
Yeah.
whatever, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
Assassin's Creed, Red Dead Redemption kind of followed that thing, same kind of thing. Which one was it?
The collect 'em all
Yeah, the collect
RPG.
them all kind of RPG. And
Yeah.
I remember I was sitting there playing Red Dead Redemption 2, which was overall a good game. It was pretty immersive, I guess you could say. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, what the hell am I doing in my life? Chopping wood and like working for these people in this freaking video game. You know what I mean? Like I'm sitting here like coming off of work, I work for like 10 hours a day. I just got off of work. I'm sitting here like chopping wood. This is dumb. Like I'm not doing this. I'm not chopping
and
wood,
then and then you run around and shoot people and lose all your honor. So it's
Yeah,
like,
and I'm like, okay, this is not fun. Like, or like Spider-Man, the first Spider-Man, you're like, cool. I'm like walking around like graffitiing walls and stuff. I'm like, this is work. This is not fun. And I really like did not touch like, and then my daughter was born, and if you have a kid, your life is over basically. At least in those
Yeah.
those early times.
yeah, they say once you have kids, that's all you have. No
Well,
time, no money, no.
Pretty much, right? But you get so much
Yeah.
more. You get so much more in return, right? But then maybe a year
Mhm.
ago, I decided to buy a Switch, and me and my daughter, she was 5 years old, or she just turned 5, right? And we're like, okay, let's play Switch, and we started playing like all the Mario games, and like we started playing a lot of Mario Party, and then we're like, we're playing. We started. She's like, let's play Fortnite because all my friends at kindergarten, preschool, or whatever play Fortnite. So she started playing. I'm like, man, this is fun. So we went and bought another Switch, and then me and my wife started playing at night after she went to bed. And then we're like, this Switch is running kind of slow. It's not really rendering the stuff. And I'm walking through the store and I see an Xbox, and I'm like, it's on sale. Here's $500. I bought an Xbox. And then I'm like walking down the store again, and I'm like, oh, there's another Xbox for sale. So I bought two Xboxes, and then like now I've got two Xboxes, and because I have it, I started playing Cyberpunk, and then I played, all these other games, and and then all my little coworkers who are a lot younger than me for the most part are just super gamers. So now, our workday consists of, like today, for example, we talked about Baldur's Gate 3 for, 5 hours straight because I started
How's
playing.
that going?
I think it's really good. I just finished the second act. It's uh if you like tabletop RPGs, right? it's it's Dungeons and Dragons. It's
Yeah,
probably the
I,
best like
yeah,
video game version of it. Have you
yeah,
played
I
it?
all no, I haven't. I almost did. Like it was like maybe 4 years ago. I was a security guard at a plant or whatever, and it was during COVID actually, and like I was talking to the people that would check people's temperatures going in and stuff,
Hmm.
and they played Dungeons and Dragons. I almost played with them, but I never did. But like all that stuff was like a little bit before my time. Like I said, I was playing the PlayStation 2, Sly Cooper. Sly Cooper was the first game I ever played. It was a
Right.
platformer or something like that.
Nice. My first game ever was
Hmm.
probably Revenge of the Shinobi 2. Fisto, did you ever roll dice? Did you ever play Dungeons and Dragons?
Never. I played Dungeons and Dragons once, ages ago.
Okay.
I'm looking through my own history with video games now because I was kind of thinking about it for a minute. And my current Steam library pretty uh reflects it pretty well. It's a ton of Civilization. I played the original Civilization back in 91 when I was however old I was, 10 years old. Civ 7 just came out.
I
And
heard
then once
I heard it sucks.
yeah, really? I don't know anything about it. Civ 5 was probably my all-time favorite. Civ
Yeah,
6 is really
me
fun.
too.
I really enjoy that one only because of the music and just everything that they do with that to really kind of drag you into just world history, the game.
Yeah,
Beyond that, it's tons of Bethesda RPGs and then Mass Effect. So that's pretty much and then I replay Half-Life 2 every 10 years or so. I'll
And then
throw that
Cyberpunk.
back on and check out the classics. But the interesting thing for me, it's funny, like with games, I was with the consoles, it was the era of Halo 3. And during that period, I made friends with a lot of folks that were in Bungie, the developer of Halo. They were in Bungie fan clubs. So like
oh wow,
I
okay.
went to New York City and like had LAN parties with guys. Like it's actually kind of funny. This is about as close as I get to any kind of celebrity. But I went to LAN parties of guys who had like shit named after them in the games as like homages
Wow,
to their fandom. Yeah. Remember Club
that's dope.
Herrera? Yeah. Do you remember Club Herrera in Halo Reach? It was like that neon club.
No way.
Yeah, I know that guy. Like I met that guy. I know the place is named for him. Like it's just
Nice.
little
No
shit like
way.
that. Yeah, little shit like that. Hung out. Miguel Chavez. He's thanked in some of the like really early Bungie comics. Remember that series of comic books they did where they had like 4 or 5? They had Mobius ink a
Uh,
comic for Halo once.
Yeah, I remember
And
yeah,
like,
that.
yeah, and
I
yeah,
didn't read the
Chavez was thanked
comics.
in that, like for example. So that's like as close as I get to like any kind of fame. But yeah, it's all Bungie, Bethesda, and Civilization, and then a smattering of other things.
I
Yeah,
mean,
But like
Bethesda
I,
I'm
is
looking,
great.
yeah, I'm
I,
looking through some of these things too. Like some of the games, man, like the ones that really approach art. Like we've talked before, how like Cyberpunk 2077 is probably the modern pinnacle or like the
Right.
contemporary pinnacle of the genre. But like Deus Ex, Outer Worlds, whip fucking smart, just clever and funny, but then you play it and you're like, holy shit, you fucking called it all. Like if you guys haven't played Outer Worlds, it's by the
I've
guys
That's
thought
that
my
did
about
New
it.
that's
Vegas.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
my
yeah.
they actually have a new game coming out this month
Do
called
they?
Avowed.
Ooh,
Yeah. And it's like
No kidding.
a coworker showed me a video of it. He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna play when it comes out." It's called Avowed. It should be out sometime this week or maybe next week. And it's a first
what did
person. It looks like it kind of looks like an updated Skyrim almost, but it's from the guys that
huh,
did Outer Worlds.
That's fun. Yeah, they did Fallout New Vegas originally, and then they did the other.
I
I think the
almost feel like
isometric Fallout games is what they did also.
yeah, they did. I almost feel like them and Bethesda are just still kind of having a beef because like
I'm
they
I'm down with it because the
because
stuff they put out,
they had
hell
Outer
yeah.
Worlds and then Bethesda made Starfield.
Yeah.
And then if Avowed is like Skyrim remake or whatever, when they're just about to release, well, not release, but work on Elder Scrolls 6, I
Right.
think they're
I'm
having a
here for
beat.
it,
I
man.
think, yeah, but didn't Microsoft buy them both out or something like that? And some people were like
Oh,
saying they're going to work together.
I'm not sure. So
no
I
idea.
tried Starfield. Because I have the Xbox Pass and they rotate games that you can just download and play. And for a
Yeah.
while, Starfield was on there. and I gave it a try, and I was like, this is really boring. And it was just not. It had no spirit to it, man. It was
Yeah,
just
I'm just
not a
waiting for
very good
Fallout
game.
5.
Yeah, once the
Basically.
novelty wore off in Starfield, it just fell off the cliff. Like
Yeah.
there's just nothing to bring. Like I fired up modern Sky. Fired up a modded Skyrim a couple weeks ago, and I've been playing that for a little bit when I have the need, and it's still amazing. I mean, what it game's almost 25 years old now, right?
All right.
Yeah,
What the
it's
fuck? What is
old.
that?
Yeah, no, that's a great
But
game.
But it's
and,
still
and
great.
then
It's still
what's
fantastic.
insane too is like if you go way back to like Morrowind, like
Oh yes,
Morrowind was awesome, dude. Like the
Yeah.
writing and everything was like just way better too back then.
low key,
Like
low
people
key. Sorry,
people
go
like
ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, people like wrote like people like fans have made graphs of like Vivek City was way bigger than Whiterun and like all this stuff. It's like
Yeah,
we're getting less and less and less for these big open world games or whatever.
All right.
Like in Morrowind, you could like make your own freaking spells and like fly around
yeah,
with like
yeah,
levitation and crazy crap like that.
You know what's
yeah. The
interesting? Baldur's Gate 3 is actually a very good game. It's a very well designed, developed game.
heard that many times. That's been on my list. I
If
gotta
you
check it
get
out.
past some of the wokery in it, right?
Oh, unfortunately.
It's pretty heavy on the wokery, every character is like bisexual and
Oh, yeah.
everyone's a lesbian, and it's like it,
Yeah, I
it's pretty heavy-handed on that kind of stuff.
See,
S-
that's why
y-
something like Outer Worlds is so great because they straight up were like, yeah, no romance options. Fuck all that. We're here to tell a story, not
yeah,
not be a dating simulator. Go talk to the Japanese if you want one of those.
yeah. I've heard that it's still not as woke as Veilguard though. Like probably just don't touch that with the 10-foot pole.
Oh yeah, that's the Dragon's Age one. I've never played any of the Dragon's Ages. Like, look, so when you're engaging with a piece of art, right? A piece of,
Yeah.
media or art, you know, I'm not one of those guys that's like, oh, it's woke, end of it. Like I'm
Yeah,
done, I tend to like I don't like cringy woke stuff in the same way I don't like cringy like right wing stuff. If things were
Yeah.
super cringy right wing, I'd be like, boomerish,
Yeah.
let's go away. Um, but Baldur's Gate is a little bit heavy on the woke stuff, where like every gnome you meet is with his boyfriend, or like it's like okay, it's a fantasy world and it's whatever, but it's kind of like pushing it. It's like, does anybody reproduce normally in this freaking world,
Yeah.
because the amount of like you're in a crisis the whole time, and the amount of like homosexual couples you meet is like, okay, the percentage just cannot be this high to sustain a population, unless
yeah.
Right.
That's what kind of turned me off about The Last of Us Part Two or the DLC of because like we played the DLC, me and my brother, we were watching, and then she gets with the chick in the end. And we're like, no, I really hope they don't put this in the second game, and then they sure did. I'm
yeah, I mean,
like, come on, come on.
I grew up in a very big homosexual, like a gay area neighborhood, right? Like my
Yeah, yeah,
where I
yeah,
grew up and where I spend time. And when I
Also
lived in
known as
San
Los
Diego,
Angeles.
also
No,
known
I'm
as
just
Los
kidding.
Angeles, right? We actually it was the downtown area of Long Beach between 4th Street and Ocean Boulevard, and we used to call it the Ghetto because it came to the edge of the ghetto,
The
yeah.
and
Gato. That's
so we
great.
call it the Ghetto. Like, oh, go down to Ghetto to like get drunk at the bars, and
They
Yep.
did
Like
you
you
know if
do.
it burned down or not?
no, 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 not even close. So
Okay,
Los
dope,
Angeles.
dope.
So one thing about Los Angeles is probably like very similar to how Texas is. It's a sprawl, right?
Okay,
Like, and most of the fires were in Malibu in the north side, in like the whole the hills or like the valley kind
oh,
of
okay.
area.
So like,
So
so it's
yes,
kind of like Houston because there's Sugar Land. There's all these different parts of the city.
right, right. So it was
Okay, okay.
very far from where like I grew. I mean, so from where I grew up in Long Beach, which is just one of those cities that's really a suburb. It's like a city attached to a city, to the greater. There is
Mhm.
no Los Angeles, right? People always say Los Angeles. There is no Los Angeles proper. I mean, there is. It's like a few neighborhoods, you like Inglewood and that kind of stuff, right? But most of every neighborhood in Los Angeles, where people say Compton or blah, blah, they're actually independent cities, right? Part of the greater Los Angeles metropolitan area. For example, the city of Hollywood, people say Hollywood's in LA. Yes, but the city of Hollywood is its own city, right? It has its own
Yeah.
mayor and its own police force. It's surrounded by Los Angeles. But same thing with the city of Beverly Hills, and same thing with Malibu. They're their own like municipalities, and they have a lot of them have their own police force. So what you have in Los Angeles, I don't know if it's like that everywhere else, is you have Los Angeles County, which makes up the greater Los Angeles metropolitan area,
Hmm.
and that's usually run by like the Los Angeles Sheriff Department. And in each individual minor city that's kind of pushed together usually has if they're big enough, they have their own police force completely. So you'll have like
Yeah.
Beverly PD and then the LAPD, which is like the greater central metropolitan, like middle business kind of areas and like Hollywood and stuff. But they tend to be like and it's hard to keep track. Even I grew up there. I spent decades of my life there. But from
Yeah.
where I lived in Long Beach, the Snoop Dogg town, and if you ever watched the Lana Del Rey videos, she's walking around my old neighborhood in that doing time like uh, video that she did, which was a cover of Sublime from Long Beach, right? If you drive from Long Beach to get to like Hollywood, for example, it's about 30 to 40-minute drive on the freeway. 6 hours if it's traffic. You know what I mean? And then people go like, "Oh, is Disneyland going to burn?" No, Disneyland's not even in Los Angeles County. Disneyland is actually in Anaheim, which is in Orange County, which is in the exact opposite direction, right?
Okay. Okay.
And people like, for example, like I was at a doctor's appointment with one of my providers, right? And she's like, "Oh, it's like getting really busy here. It's so many places here in South Carolina." I was like, "Okay, sure," because if you were to compare it to where I grew up, you would start at the bottom south of Savannah and go all the way up to Charleston, and it would be all sprawl. You can start driving in,
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
start driving
Houston's
in
like that.
Ventura, yeah. Yeah, you can start driving in Ventura and you can drive all the way to San Diego and not see a bit of wildlife. It's just neighborhoods, it's just urban, right? With like
Hmm.
a few strips of like wetlands or something like that. But for the most part, it's like utter sprawl. It's like cyberpunk, man, like there's no like no concrete. So like
Mm.
the fires happened in that northern belt area, which is all hills. And you know people are people are kind of insane when they talk about those fires, right? Because everybody in California knows the fires happen, right?
Yeah.
Because
They happen
California,
every year
they
almost.
happen every year, and if you live there and spend any time in Southern California, the environment is called chaparral forest. It's chaparral woodland, right? Which is a
Hmm.
coastal kind of forest, and you learn this in like elementary school when you go to your hiking trip out in the woods, right? You do this little hiking trip, and the way the chaparral forest, like the environment, and it's chaparral forest from like Ventura, like Central California, all the way down to Mexico, basically. From like Santa Barbara down to San Diego, which touches the border. And the way it kind of revitalizes itself is it burns, right? Lightning hits it, everything burns. It revitalizes the desert soil, the brown
Yeah.
desert soil.
That's how nature is. Yeah.
Right. And then we have new chaparral crap growing out of it, and that's it's how it goes, right? The problem is we decide to build a sprawling metropolis in the middle of this crap, right? It's like
Yeah.
that's what happens. So yes, the people in charge are guilty because, well, you need to prepare for that kind of stuff, right? That's your job to prepare for that. You have to have enough firefighters, and if you want to live there, you got to have the backup for it. Like that's what you're paying. That's what you're getting paid for. That's what your taxes are being paid for. So it's a complete failure on their part. Now, when people go, "Oh my God, it's global warming," and people go, "No, oh, it's not global warming. Oh, it's global warming," that is a idiotic reframing of the conversation, right? Because whether it's global warming or not, it's irrelevant, right? I cannot stand when people go, "Well, global warming, that's why we have hurricanes." Okay, no, it doesn't matter. Even if we say, okay, yes, it's global warming, all right, fine, I agree with you. Global warming is happening. It's causing hurricanes and snowstorms and it's causing everything, right?
Yeah.
It's still your freaking job to prepare for it,
Yeah.
right?
That drives
Right.
me up a wall. Like oh, it's global warming. Let's just do nothing, like except get more taxes or whatever.
Right.
It
Like
drives me up a wall.
it's like, okay, got it. It's global warming. Now it's your job to prepare for it. All
Yeah,
right? Because
Right.
that's why
and
you're an
then
elected official. Like you should be
Yeah,
more
it's
like
this idea of well, this big huge thing is happening instead of trying to deal with it, trying to approach it like a mature adult. It's well, nihilistic death cult. Let's go.
right.
yeah,
Wait, what? It's just hold
that's
on.
like this is pretty much what happened in Galveston in 1900 when they just got nearly obliterated by a hurricane. They're like, how about we build some seawalls? Like when Indianola got obliterated in 1880, we were like, yeah, we don't need seawalls. They'll never happen here.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the
Well,
water districts in Florida too, like the amount of infrastructure
Yeah,
that makes Florida work.
well, it's like one of the things that like
and then
bothers me about the global warming conversation, right? Is that okay, fine. Let's I don't want to argue about it, right? Let's say 100% anthropomorphic, human caused global warming is true. Okay, so what? You're not going to, stopping plastic straws and whatever is not going to reverse 100 years or 140 years of industrial revolution, right? And
just stop using oil.
right,
Just stop using. Nah, it's like no, you got more oil on your face from the all the makeup, you drag queen. No,
right, exactly, right. But even if you were to magically snap your
drives
fingers.
me up a wall.
Yeah, no, exactly. Even if you were to magically stop all uses of fossil fuels like today, right? It would still,
Mhm.
if global warming is what they say it is, which it's not, but I want to talk about it,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's say it is. Let's take that assumption. Even if we were to stop all this stuff, it would still not magically unfuck the supposed damage it's done, right? So
Yeah.
as a elected official, especially one that believes that it's changing the weather patterns, that means you have double the responsibility to prepare for it. And in the case of California, where almost every single elected official is a liberal Democrat, you have no excuse. You knew if you believed in global warming, you knew we were going to have weather disasters and fire disasters much bigger than before. And you've been harping about this nonsense for the last my entire freaking life, right? So why weren't you prepared for it, Los Angeles? You know what I mean? Out of
Yeah.
all the cities in the world, that's the
Well,
one that should
it's
have been
all
prepared.
it's narrative management in order to facilitate theft. That's
Right.
what they're really doing.
That's exactly
Yeah.
what it is. Right.
Bam. There you go.
Yep.
Right.
It's like it's not to protect people from the environment; it's to reduce the number of people adding carbon to the air. No,
Right.
or something like that.
And I am an environmentalist, okay? I like to call myself a conservationist, okay? I
Yeah.
think that the right wing's biggest failure in the last 50 something years is seceding the ground of conservation and environmentalism to blue-haired imbeciles, okay?
Yeah.
And
I feel like we've discussed
Like
this before.
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Like
Yeah, no, I think you're right.
the only guys maybe kind of trying to stand in the gap, maybe just failing, are like hunters that say, "Hey, we want to, hunt freely and not hunt too much or whatever." Like they like to keep a balance in nature or whatever.
right.
Just reasonable. Like, okay, I went to Missouri. I wish Texas would do this, but I guess they can't do it or whatever. But I went to Missouri and they have a like gigantic fish farm or something. You don't even need a fishing license in Missouri because they just breed like a bajillion fish and stick them in the river for everybody to go
That's
fishing.
awesome. That's
So I'm
awesome.
like, bro, unlimited fishing? Like what? I
Right,
can just fish like it's 1920 or whatever, take it
right,
home, eat it, you know, all day, every day. Be like,
right.
heck yeah.
But think about it this way, right? When you look at everything, nothing is more conservative. Nothing is more conservative. Nothing is more right wing than nature itself, right? And from a right wing perspective, from a conservative perspective,
Hmm.
and even from a Christian perspective, the preservation of pristine, beautiful nature is our duty, right?
Hmm.
And somewhere along the line, when the right wing in the United States became enamored with syphilitic insanity of libertarianism, we have gotten to the point of rejecting our duty to take care of the environment and allowing high school teenage brained imbeciles to to dictate what environmentalism is. Every single freaking like local Republican government should be an environmentalist government because that's how you, because you know what, the left wing is right. Migrations, for example, the migration like refugee crisis is an environmental issue because when you import 1 billion people from third world countries, they're going to destroy the local environment. All
Yeah,
right.
because like down here, like because I live like an hour or two from the border, and we have trash like on the side of the roads, even up here sometimes,
Right.
just from you know, well, it's getting cleaned up now, but before it is like I don't know if all this trash is from just years and years of whatever or a caravan passed through.
Yeah, look,
you
yeah,
know?
I mean, look, take you can spend your a year traveling the world and going to different places like India, and you will see, or anywhere, any of the countries I've been to outside of Europe, and there's no respect for the environment. Everywhere where humans
Oh yeah.
inhabit it, it is completely embarrassing. So I was in Papua New Guinea with a kind of a humanitarian project a few years ago, and I was on the small island, and I was there just doing nothing. That's what I was doing. But the guys I was with, the company I was with, was they were basically building medical facilities, and I was there in the role of taking care of them, like the crew,
Hmm.
right? I was their medical advisor in case they got malaria and stuff. I would treat them, and I would call the plane. I had to like use I had to use I had a guy that had appendicitis, and I had to use a missionary flight, like one of those Christian Protestant missionaries that like do like
Hmm.
freaking deep jungle mission work. And I had to have them like loan us an airplane to come pick him up because I guess we gotta pay like the 2 grand for the fuel for this damn thing, because I gotta get you out of here into the capital before
Yeah.
you die of appendicitis. But we were there in this little town, and this small town, the only town with roads on this whole island we were on, was a giant garbage pit. Like, I mean, it
Yeah.
was a dump, right? Like, these people had absolutely no, like, self-respect. They're just living in
Yeah.
trash, just living in trash, man. They would, like,
Yeah.
open a can of beer, drink a can of beer on the side, and just toss it on the ground.
I,
And,
yeah. I've been
it-
to a mission in the Dominican Republic. It wasn't like that, like we're going deep into the jungle or whatever. It was in a city in the Dominican Republic. I can't remember, but we were like helping because they don't even have the like they built everything with cement. Like I was mixing cement with a water hose
right.
and a shovel or whatever, and then I would fill 2 buckets up, and my dad would carry it up the stairs like three or four flights of stairs, and they would use that to put their floor tiles in and everything. And they just don't have the infrastructure for taking care of the environment or anything.
Right, but what's
It's
crazy about that my time there, one of we had this woman with us, and she was kind of a bleeding heart type, and she had this great
hmm
idea to get together with a bunch of the the locals that were kind of like, we stayed at this like hotel, but hotel is an overstatement, an over descriptor in my opinion of what this place was, right? And they're like, oh, let's clean the town square because our hotel faced the circle, and she was just tired of all the trash.
yeah,
So we did like, let's do a volunteer work, and I was like, I don't know, that's kind of stupid. I don't want to clean out the people's mess. You know what I mean? Like, I'm one of those people that I was like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't want to do this. Like.
yeah,
But, I went along with it and everything. So, all these guys and a bunch of locals went around cleaning up the center of the little town, right?
mm,
Well, afterwards, they were pissed off at her and at us for doing that because we made them look bad, right? Like, they felt like we embarrassed them for cleaning up their town. Well, it's like, dude, come on, man. Like, you literally can, like, you have a dump at the edge of town. You can take a
You,
trash
yeah,
there, you know? Like, you
it's
don't
like
have to,
you
like,
live here, bro. I'm
yeah.
only here for like a week or two, or however long
Yeah,
we
I
were
was
gonna
there. I
do it.
was there for like 9 months, and it was like,
Oh, okay.
you can pick up the trash can, man. You can, you've got, it's not like people go, oh, well, they can't do it because they're poor. I'm like, no, just because you're poor, it doesn't mean you have to live in filth, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
like I grew up poor and I didn't live in filth, You don't just throw
Hmm.
crap on the ground and live in it, dude. You know what I mean? Like and obviously it bothered them because they felt ashamed about it,
Yeah.
And it's like, you know what? You have dumps. You can burn the trash. I know it's not the most environmentally safe thing, but burning the trash is better than letting it sit around on the ground where it blows into the ocean, which is, it's insane because it's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been to. It's like just pristine jungle and there's little tiny islands you can get to. Like some of them you can walk to through over the sand dunes and the water is so clear. You can see like these giant clownfish in the water, like, Finding Nemo fish and stuff. And it's just
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
gorgeous. Like you stick your head into crystal clear water and you look down and it's just colors, just beautiful colors of like, reefs and stuff. And then you go out into the town and it's literally looks like a fucking dump, dude.
Yeah.
You
What?
just, ugh.
Yeah, when I went to the Dominican, that like yeah, the beaches were beautiful. Some of the places, the food was nice, but then there was beggars everywhere. I don't know if it was like that where you were or some of the other places you've been like all over the globe or whatever, but like I guess that was a bit of a culture shock for me because like yeah, you see the homeless guy on the side of the road, it's like that's one thing, but like these people would like haggle you, be like, like I don't know. We had this one guy trying to sell his glasses, like full on open his coat, like want to buy some glasses.
Like a vulture. He was like,
Yeah, yeah,
Hey, you want to buy a watch? You want to buy a
yeah.
watch?
And like I remember seeing
Fantastic.
some Oakleys. I was like, bro, those are Hoaxleys because like back in the States, they were like
The
a hundred
Huxley.
bucks.
yeah.
That's funny.
You know what? A lot of places are like that,
We
and you can't blame
okay,
those
yeah,
people. I don't blame those people because it's like
yeah,
you're
yeah,
trying to hustle, you're trying to make a, you know,
yeah.
and
Don't
I
hate the
just
player,
wasn't
hate the
I just
game.
wasn't used to it, I guess. I was like a
Yeah,
teenager when we went, so I'm like,
right,
what
right.
the heck is going on?
Well,
So,
you know what they
anybody
say.
forgive me, just
Yeah,
forgive
you
me
know what
or
they
whatever.
say is like, the best way to turn a bleeding heart liberal into a racist is to have him go to some of the places that he advocates for, and
Yeah,
they come back and
yeah.
they're like, these mother
That's
savages. Yeah,
that's just kind of what I'm thinking about because
right.
like they didn't even have heated water. They how they heated the water was they have a black water tank on their roof to catch the rain, and then they'll take a shower with that or something, and it's
Right.
just baking in the sun all day.
Well, and then
And then we went up to the hills, all right, to like teach some kids for like a Sunday school thing or whatever. And I had to go. Okay, this this ain't quite as bad as your Mount Fuji story, but
yeah.
but
Podcast
I,
lore. Podcast lore there, folks.
I had to
Podcast.
go number two, and I was like, how do I flush? And she's like, I'm like, oh my god, I just took a dump in this lady's tin hut. It's a tin hut, okay, and I guess she's gonna have to clean it out later.
Yeah,
I was like, oh my
you
god.
got to do what you got to do, right? And
Yeah,
it's crazy because Americans, a lot of times Americans have a hard time, grasping poverty,
yeah,
because
Yeah,
we talk
agreed.
about it, but until you see like legitimate poverty, and I'm not talking when we think of poverty, we think of people like down on their luck, homeless, or that kind of stuff.
like okay, sorry to interrupt again, but like we went to an orphanage after that or whatever, and like it was the Christian orphanage. They get uniforms, they get clothes and stuff or whatever, and then this kid was because like okay, we're visiting, we like cooked some burgers or whatever, and like they told us to cook it uh not rare, well done, because they could catch something if you did it rare. But and we were in this orphanage. Okay, I'm stressing that for a reason. This kid comes up to the fence. He's so hungry, he's shaking the fence, wanting to get into the orphanage.
Right.
Like people just don't understand poverty. Like
No,
when a kid's trying to get into the orphanage and he's got family at home
right.
that he needs to go to.
It's rough, and it's like it's so painful because you go to these places, and first of all, like I'm not a big fan of poverty tourism, right? I have a problem with
Oh
poverty
God.
Yeah,
tourism,
Yeah.
right?
yeah.
I find that very like the whole thing on Instagram, and Anthony Bourdain was very guilty of poverty tourism. He's like, oh look, I'm in Haiti, guys. There's delicious dirt cake. It's so much better than it is back in the States. Shut the fuck up, like you fucking poverty pimp. That's what he was. Um,
Aren't they ruled by barbecue now? Or some place like that.
I don't know, but you look at these places and you realize that there's deep systemic problems that no amount
Yeah,
of aid, no amount of money is going to fix these places. You have a place like Papua New Guinea where if you're a female Papua New Guinean, you basically you're going to get raped in your life. It's just a given. So there's something like 80 to 90% uh, lifetime rape, you know?
that's terrible.
And if you're not going to get burnt as a witch, because they still burn and kill people as witches today.
Yo, what?
Yeah, that place is wild, And they say that they're not cannibals anymore, but I don't believe it, because I pretty much saw human teeth for sale a few times in some of the markets,
Uh,
And I
You
ate.
gotta you gotta get in good with the elders, and
what?
then they'll induct you into the cannibal
Yeah,
cult.
and I ate animals that I'm
What?
pretty sure on the endangered list while I was there without my own
We
knowledge.
absolutely do not support the consumption of human flesh at any time for
No, I
any
never, I
reason.
never ate human flesh because I don't want kuru, it comes, it was diagnosed and discovered in Papua New Guinea, right?
Except
Uh,
in video games.
well, so yeah, except in video
Computer
games.
games, it actually gives a +10 buff to something. I don't
Yeah.
even know what, but it's
So
good in cannibalism is good actually in Minecraft.
So for listeners, kuru is a prion disease that causes it causes brain swelling. Prions are proteins in your brain that
Ooh.
when they're diseased, they fold improperly. I'm not.
Yeah,
Don't,
they say mad cow disease is like that.
yes, mad cow is
Hmm.
part of the prion family, and it was kind of discovered and diagnosed in Papua New Guinea, and the theory behind it is that it comes from cannibalism. Certain tribes in Papua New Guinea they still do, no matter what people say, they still do. They had a practice where they basically eat their elders when they pass away. So part of the funerary rites is they commit like funerary cannibalism.
Yeah,
And what Kuru does is it makes you go insane. Your brain swells. You have all kinds of like nervous system like twitches, and you laugh. You start laughing all the time. So you're just fucking insane,
yeah.
right? And because of that, the locals were like, oh, it's ghosts or something, or you're
I was gonna
bewitched.
say it's some kind of religious experience. It's not.
Right,
It's
so
the
then they burn.
devil.
So then
It's
you get kuru from eating your ancestors, right? And you start having like atalgias and like all kinds of like brain encephalies, and you're laughing
yeah.
constantly, like
You start
twitching.
connecting to the ancestors, man.
Yeah,
Come on,
Right, and then
don't
then they
knock it.
burn you. Then they burn you alive because they're saying
Yeah.
you're possessed by a ghost, right? So it's
yeah.
all around a fantastic like thing. It's terrible, And how do you change that? How do how do you change that kind of stuff, right? Like you can't do it through aid and example. You know what I mean? I remember
Yeah,
I
it would
was
have to be like I'm not advocating this or whatever. I'm not in power anyway, so it would have to be like a forceful change of the culture.
right, absolutely. It
Like,
would have to be through direct colonialism in the same way the British Empire got rid of wife burning,
I'm thinking
ritual wife burning in India. That's
I'm thinking of
exactly
that. I'm thinking of that Aztec sacrifice meme. Here comes
right.
the hard right.
Right, exactly it. Because
We just did the meme. Yay.
I commented about this on Substack a while back and talking specifically about Haiti, right? If if it is the United States response, if it is our moral responsibility, right, to give aid to countries in, in need, right, to fix
Right.
people because of their disastrous outcomes, right? We look at Haiti. Haiti has a history of over 200 years. It's a country that is the second revolution in the Americas, right? It
Hmm.
followed up the American Revolution by a few years, and it's the second oldest independent country in the Western Americas, right? Um,
Hmm.
and it's a fucking disaster, right? It's a disaster, and whether you say that like it's a disaster because of French reparations or whatever money to take from them or whatever, either way, they have proven themselves incapable of governing, right? They have time after time after time, just in my own lifetime, proven themselves incapable of providing the basic necessities of a stable government, right? So at this point, if we are responsible for them, if we're responsible for their well-being, right? You say, oh, we need to take in 10,000 Haitian refugees or they die back home. At what point do we go, okay, obviously, if you go
There's a
home,
100,000 of them dying back home.
right,
So why don't we stop the dying?
right. So why don't we go over there and say, maybe your independence makes you incapable of self-governing. Maybe whatever you're doing is not right. Okay, you've had about 200 years of it. It ain't happening there. It ain't working for you, dog. Maybe we need to run things for a little bit. And I
Make
don't know.
vassalization great
Yeah.
again.
The
Right,
Here we
the
go.
saying the saying goes, uh, if you try the same thing over and over again, and expect a different result. That's insanity,
right.
basically.
So, in my opinion, when it comes to colonialism, right, and I wish colonialism never existed, an ideal situation, the best form of colonialism and the most acceptable form of colonialism would be like Hong Kong, where the
Hmm.
British built a city over nothing, right? There was nothing in Hong Kong before Hong Kong, right? Uh,
Yeah.
it was a political negotiation where the Chinese Empire at that time lost a war against the British East India Company, and they claimed the island of Hong Kong and some of the surrounding things. So much so that the Chinese kept on giving them land. They're like, here, take more land, take Kowloon City and all this crap because you can govern it better than we can, right?
Yeah.
Um, but they didn't displace any locals or anything like that. There might have been like a small like tribe of people living in there, but they were like not really important even to the Chinese at that time, right? It wasn't like they
Yeah.
they took over the Chinese Han homeland or the Cantonese homeland, right? They
Right.
built
There's nothing there.
there's nothing there, right? And they built one of the greatest cities on the planet, right? I think that's more like, you know, that's a beef over land where nobody was displaced particularly, right?
Yeah. I
Um,
actually recently listened to a podcast by Milton Friedman. He was praising Hong Kong in 1980 for its economics and all that. Yeah, but
yeah, no, Hong Kong is a
yeah,
great
sorry if I
place.
interrupted you or whatever.
No, no,
Yeah,
absolutely. Hong
or
Kong
it
is
was
a
until it got taken by the Chinese here recently or
right.
whatever.
Well, I mean, the Chinese like
But
basically pulled kind of the people to blame in that. I mean, that this is a complete divergence, of course, and I don't want to get into it, but the people to blame are the British because they're the ones that allowed the Chinese to take it back, right? And in a way,
yeah,
we're also to blame because we supported the Chinese bid back because of our anti-colonial stance, right? But one of the problems with European colonialism, and this is actually decolonization has been absolutely horrible for almost everywhere, right? And this what I'm about to say is not a new idea. If you're a Mencius Moldbug, Curtis Yarvin kind of reader, right? In some of his early writing, he points something out that I always believed in. When I came across it, I was like, "Oh yeah, that's exactly how I feel too from my travels." Right? Uh, he says that look at all the post-colonial places. Right? Did any of them revert to their pre-colonial form of government and life? Right? So what he's trying to say is it's kind of a trick question, right? But
Hmm.
can you name one former colonial African country or any of those, countries where the British Empire or the Dutch or whatever left, did they go back to being, a tribal run society where they had like a tribal king or a shaman or whatever they had before colonialism happened? Can you name any one of those? The answer is
South America and Elon Musk.
well, right.
No,
No, but
I'm playing. I'm playing.
the South Americans weren't okay. So the South
Oh,
Americans weren't
sorry.
calling.
I meant to say South Africans. I'm sorry.
Right, but
Africa. I'm
once
sorry.
again, the South Africans, even they didn't revert to that because they still
I know.
have the
I
same
know.
parliamentary system. They have a parliamentary system, right? Almost all those African countries either have a constitutional system, right, like Liberia and a lot of those countries, or they have a continental parliamentary, or either a British parliamentary system or a continental based system that comes out of the French or
Mhm.
Dutch,
Yeah, I'm
right?
thinking of South America right now, and it's like South Central. I can't think of any.
Right, right. None of them do, right?
I
So what's
mean, I mean, God, Brazil had a proper emperor for a while.
right, but you can't count those South American countries as true colonial countries because, and the reason I say that is because they're
Okay.
first wave colonial countries, right? They're in the
Okay.
same way the United States is a colonial country,
Yeah.
where
Hmm.
the thing is without colonization, those places would not exist because there wasn't a huge population
Right.
there, and
Yeah. Good point.
everybody south of the border is technically European ancestry, right? There
Right.
is no Mexicans without Spain, right? There is no
Right.
Colombia without Spain. There's no Brazil without Portugal. You know what I mean? There's
Right.
like
Yeah.
those
Okay.
are really, but I'm talking about those
There's no
countries.
Argentina without Germans.
Right, right. Yeah. I'm talking about those countries like the African countries and stuff. None of them
Yeah.
reverted to
Yeah.
their
Yeah. Okay.
old tribal, right? Except a few. Which ones do you think? Here's a trick question. Which ones of the post-colonial countries reverted to their old pre-colonial
Somalia?
government? No,
No.
the Middle Eastern countries,
Oh, the Middle Eastern countries.
right?
Okay.
The Middle Eastern
Okay.
countries are the
Okay.
only countries that were colonies for a while of the British or the Germans or the Italians, like Algeria and stuff, and they reverted to a traditional based monarchies, right? That are some of the only
Right.
true monarchies left in the world, right? And there are
Yeah.
enemies.
So you're talking like the King of Jordan,
Absolutely, right? Jordan, Saudi Arabia,
Yeah.
the Emirates,
and
right?
then
Saudi Arabia,
okay,
UAE.
Right.
is there's Iran, but
Iran.
they overthrew them in the 70s
Right.
or something
But then
like
they
that.
still stuck to a traditionalist
Yeah, yeah,
religious-based Islamic government, right? And there are enemies, right? Countries that reverted to pre-colonialism became our enemies of the West, while countries that basically stayed colonies in name only, and everything but the name, right, are our friends. And what's interesting, right? Um, one of my problems with decolonization is that it's not fair to the people, right? You took these people that did not have any of this stuff, you built all these infrastructure, you did all this stuff for them, and then you just left, right? You just left.
yeah,
And they're supposed to go from being guys living in the jungle to running a representative democracy in like 20 years. How's that fair to
Hmm.
them? It's like me going to my little kid, right? And going, hey, daughter, you are now in charge of paying the bills. You
yeah.
know what I mean?
Would you say that was
Yeah.
kind of like Afghanistan here recently?
Well,
Because
that's what we tried to do in Afghanistan to a certain degree. Of course, it failed because it was
yeah,
completely imaginary the whole time. But you look at these places, right? I was in another South Pacific country called Timor-Leste, right? And Timor-Leste is a
Oh,
country
yeah.
that you're not really probably most people are not familiar with Timor-Leste. They're another country that got wrecked by colonialism, and in this case, it was Portuguese colonialism, and it's interesting. Most Americans are familiar with the Philippines, and we probably know Filipino people, right? I don't know if you
Mhm.
guys have a bunch of Filipinos in Texas or in Florida,
oh yeah, I've met a few Filipinos.
right? In California, there's tons of Filipinos everywhere, right? The
Yeah. I've
Filipinos
met a
are
few, but
right. The Filipinos are an interesting mix of Spanish and islanders, right? And their culture is very Hispanic in its nature, but they're technically Asian, but they're technically Pacific Islanders. It's kind of an interesting mix, right? But it's a very Catholic culture. Well, the Timor-Leste people are bizarro world Filipinos, if that makes sense, right? They're a very similar culture, but instead of mixing Spanish with local islanders, you mix Portuguese with local islanders,
Hmm.
right? So you still have the Catholicism and stuff, but it's a little bit different vibe. It's a different flavor. It's like a Diet Coke of that colonial mix.
Hmm.
And the history of it is interesting because it's one of the poorest countries in Asia, or the Pacific, and the reason is because the Portuguese treated it like crap. They really didn't really build much infrastructure. They just kind of, extracted, beechwood and materials from it, and kind of ran it like haciendas over there. And during the 80s, when the Portuguese got rid of their kind of they were kind of a pseudo Franco. They were like baby Franco in a way, the way their government was. When they got
Oh
rid
yeah,
of their
weren't they extraction stuff from the Congo too?
Yeah, they were doing that, but that was mostly the Belgians. The Belgians were the big Congo guys. But
Oh, okay.
the
Yeah.
Portuguese,
My bad.
it was the Belgian Congo. The Portuguese though, they were fascist, or fascist adjacent. They were like third hand fascists basically. It was what they were, right? They were basically like,
Diet Coke
well,
fascists.
yeah, they were like, Frank. No, well, if Franco was a Diet Coke fascist, right? Let's be honest, Frank,
Okay. Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
The
No, accurate, accurate.
Okay, Franco was Diet Dr. Pepper, right? To Hitler and Mussolini's Dr. Pepper. Uh,
Yeah.
the
These
Portuguese were
guys are these
Mr.
these
Pibb.
guys are Diet Dr. Thunder. No, these are
Yeah,
Dr.
no,
Thunder.
they're Mr. Pibb, or like
Pretty good though.
Yeah.
or Dr. Shasta or something like that.
There you go. Yeah,
Where
yeah, yeah.
it kind but they had a soft revolution in the late 70s, 80s, right? And they became a socialist country, which I believe is what they are today, right? And what they did as soon as that happened is they just abandoned their freaking they abandoned all their colonies. They're just like, peace, we're done. Bye. We don't have any more
Bye,
responsibility,
guys.
you guys.
See ya.
Look,
We out.
decolonization, you're free, democracy, enjoy it, fuck it, So they just kind of bounced. Well, what happened as soon as they bounced, right? The Timor Leste, which is really interesting, is because it's kind of a stupid name, right, for a country, because it actually means east. Timor means east, and Leste means Eastern Portuguese.
Yeah.
So it's like it's east if you really want to translate it properly, right?
That's really far east.
Yeah, you can actually see Australia from places in Timor Leste,
Oh
right?
wow, cool.
You can see the Australian coastline.
Yeah,
Well,
it's just off the northern coast.
right. So these guys bounced, right? And the Indonesians decided to fuck them up, right? Because they
Yeah,
share.
East Timor genocide.
So the
Here we go.
Indonesians decided to roll into East Timor and just genocide the shit out of these guys, right? Now these guys were just abandoned by the Portuguese, right?
Oh
Now
no.
what's interesting is in their very short interim of not being genocided by the Indonesians and being Portuguese things, right? They kind of got their brains rotted by a lot of Marxism. And they had, like even if you go there today, there's like murals of Che Guevara and stuff like that, right? All over the place. They got that like a good healthy dose of that Catholic liberation theology from the Catholic Church, and that kind of caused their brain rot. And so when they were being genocided by the Indonesians were staunchly anti-communists, right? They were fucking up
Yeah.
communists all over Southeast Asia. So the United States were like, well, maybe you shouldn't genocide them, but maybe they shouldn't be communists. And we just kind of ignored it, right? And the Indonesians didn't leave them alone until like 2000. Timor-Leste didn't become an actual independent country until the 2000s, right? It's one of the youngest countries in the world. And
Yeah.
Wow.
yeah, it's wild. You go there, and every adult male you meet that is my age or older was a guerrilla fighter in the 80s and 90s, right? They lived in the jungle fighting Indonesians to the death, basically with machetes and stuff. It's very poor. Like, you can buy a pack of Marlboro cigarettes for like 50 cents, which is fucking awesome, but I'm not gonna, uh,
So
and
worth it. So on the black so for Black Ibis, that's all of this is worth it because it's cheap cigarettes. Yeah,
Right. There's
that seems like
Australian like perverts
just
like
kidding, just kidding.
swarming that country everywhere you go, just Australians everywhere.
Huh.
Um, it's very interesting. I went to the U.S. embassy because you go to those places you need to know where the embassy is and stuff, right? And they don't even have like they don't have a fence or anything. It's just like a shack. It's like, hey, look, it's like a shack next to like the Russian embassy, which is also like a hut, and it's like it's pretty funny. Like it's
So
so
if you're going to be the ambassador to Timor-Leste, it's like shit.
yeah, basically, and like the only like they do all their
Who'd I piss
business at
off?
all the embassies do their business at the local bars. There's like one or two bars that are for
Oh,
like
that's great.
foreigners, and you go there on a like a Friday afternoon, and they've got like karaoke. It's like an outdoor bar, and it was one of the bars was called Castaways, and they had like the logo of the movie, the
Oh no.
the ball thing, like the volleyball, right? And it was like every single person there was a foreigner because none of the locals could afford even like the 50-cent beer.
Yeah.
And it was just like, oh, hey, Yuri from the Russian embassy. Hey, blah, blah,
There is
blah, from the Portuguese embassy. Hey, guy from the
there is
UN.
there is a Coen Brothers style burn after reading type
Right.
movie just waiting to be written
Well,
about
I'm
this.
actually writing a novel about this experience, like
Are you really?
expatriate. Like, yeah,
Really?
that's
Oh,
That's
because
fantastic.
dope.
it's like
Called it.
my South Pacific adventures are getting put into a novel, and it's the interesting people are. I mean, the locals are very interesting themselves, and I love some of the people. I was there for almost a
You're
year,
gonna
man.
you're gonna have to call it Alexander's Travels of the Orient.
So I got stuck there for like almost a year, dude, because of COVID,
Wow.
right? So like I
That's
mean,
so funny.
you know, I hear all everybody's COVID stories, right? Like about how like
Oh
awful
my
it was.
God.
But I went there and I got stuck. I couldn't leave, right? I was like,
You're
oh, I'm
stuck in
stuck.
Timor.
So I'm stuck in Timor, and I'm
Oh
basically
my God.
and they never even fucking heard of COVID. It wasn't even real to them. They never even heard like they're like, what? You know?
Is that a new Indonesian thing? Like
Well, the U.S. embassy was like, "Hey guys, don't wear masks and stuff, like because it freaks out the locals. And they don't really know what it is. So we're just gonna."
they'll machete you and drag you into
But
the jungle and eat your
what they
organs.
really
Let's
what they
not.
really wanted to do, right, was
Wow.
they wanted to still party at bars and stuff and pretend that like because like they're like if COVID they gotta close it, so we're like, right, so I'm joking that they didn't know. They knew about COVID in the greater world because they're not like freaking savages, right? But like
Right.
they had zero cases, right? And
Right.
it
Just
was like
clever.
but then they were like, we're not letting any planes come to pick you up. So they shut down the airport, right? And it was like, well, I guess we can't leave here. And I like, we're there just doing humanitarian stuff. We're building schools, like little schoolhouses, right? And these guys are like, I'm like, they're like, oh, can you come explain to them as like the medical representative that you guys don't have COVID and we should be able to like call a plane to pick you up. We'll pay for us, for an airliner to come land. But nobody wants to land there because the freaking runway has no lights. It's like you couldn't get anybody to come pick you up. And it was like, oh my fucking God, right? Like I'm gonna live here forever. Do I need to get on a boat and like head home? I was like, this is awful. But I loved it. I was stuck there, and I also was involved in a multiple gang war. When I was
What?
there. Okay, so I was down in the very lower tip of the island, right? And we were building a school in the jungle, and my boss, he was irritated. He didn't want to do it. He's like, I'm tired of this place. We've been here forever. We're gonna run out of funding. It's just like dumb. Like, what are we doing? He was just like he was over it. And he wasn't really my boss. He was like the team leader, and I'm just like, I'm not really in charge of anything. I was just there to make sure nobody died, right? And they're like, why don't you go down there and like with the team and like start surveying this for this new school project or whatever, right? And I'm like, fine, I'll go down there. So we went down south, and there was this crazy village, and there was in the middle of the village was this giant like hacienda, and it was like a Spanish or Portuguese built hacienda, built by like a dictator back in the day, like a Portuguese like general or something like that. And it looked, it was pink. It had like it looked like something that should have been in like I don't know, like the southern tip of Spain or something like that. Like in
Yeah. Key
Portugal,
West
right?
or something.
Right. And it's in the jungle, and then it was converted into a hotel, and then the right outside in the town square was like this like statue of like Saint Francis of Assisi, but it was all collapsed and like like jungle's like eating this whole place, right? Like it was completely haunted looking, like completely like just haunted, right? Well,
Wow. Okay.
when you go there, the U.S. Embassy tells you you gotta watch out for martial art gangs. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about, martial art gangs, right? Well, they've got these gangs of dudes that fight each other, like in the streets, like ninja style, right? Like just these dudes, they're just knifing each other and like fighting, right? And we didn't see any. So one night we're sitting at the hotel and I'm sitting there drinking my espresso and drinking my Australian wine because that's the cheapest wine to get there because it's right across the water, right? And I start seeing like I'm like on the patio because it was all because it's so hot and the air conditioners never work. So all like the little waitresses are like running around like closing all the windows and stuff on the inside. Like, what the hell are they doing? And I hear this commotion outside. And one of my buddies like, hey man, what's going on? So I get up and I go around a corner and look down from the hotel. And in this town square, there's a funeral. And I shit you not, Fisto, right? It is a scene out of Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh, jeez.
Right? At the beginning of the movie, these guys, this entire martial art gangs with their like bandanas and their colored like things and like their regalia are like basically like parading this coffin through the town square, right?
Oh, wow.
But a rival gang attacks them. And these dudes start macheting each other in the middle of the street, right? And I was like, oh my God. Like,
here we go.
This is going to be bad, right? I'm like,
yeah.
And the military police roll up, like the local police, which is like paramilitary, and they start shooting off tear gas and like they start shooting off rounds. And I'm like, okay. Like I don't know what to do, right? And like I'm in charge because these jerks put me in charge of running this small team. And I'm like, I think we should I don't know, call the embassy and tell them like this is going on, or I don't know, we'll deal with it tomorrow. It's kind of cool. But I got a huge mouthful of tear gas. Let me tell you, man, that is not conducive to enjoying my wine, all right, and my espresso. Like, I was like,
I'm looking up these gangs on Google while you're talking, and it's hilarious.
It's wild.
I mean, I feel like I've stepped through a portal into another realm.
Right.
This is an actual headline in Time magazine from back in 2010. Why East Timor has declared war on ninjas. Just what?
Right.
But in East Timor, ninjas have become a national security threat.
That's funny.
Right.
I'm just over here thinking, like, what if Timor just kicked the U.S. diplomat out, and then Donald Trump's like, "Who are you?
Well,
like, where you from? What is this place?"
So interestingly enough, right, the politics of it is pretty fraught because East Timor is one of the only places I've ever been where you're supposed to tell people you're American, right? A lot of places where you go, you're like, I'm not an American. I'm like, oh no, I'm Romanian, guys. I speak English really well, Even when I went back to Romania, like I went to the airport and there was like super attractive like airport check-in lady with like stamps at airport, and she puts on like Slav bitch face instantly when she sees my American airport. And I'm like, oh my God, And then I was like, hey, bună ziua, ce mai faci? Unde mă duc? I was like speaking to Romanian. She's like, oh, hey, you're Romanian, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, I'm just flying on an American passport, And she's like, cool, stamps it and shows me the way and like cuts me in line and stuff, right? So,
Gotta
I was
help
like,
out the homeland. Gotta help out the.
Yeah, I was like, come on, give me a break here, okay? I'm not American, right? But
hey, Alex, just real quick, is this an example of the Transylvania Riz? Is that what's going on?
Well,
here?
so you know what, I will, I'm gonna have to tell you the truth here, right? I am not Transylvanian, right?
No.
So Transylvania is a state in Romania.
Disgrace.
There's three different states, and like there was 3 or 4 big states in Romania, right? And I'm from the south. I'm from Bucharest, which is like its own
the Bucharest.
and it's like
Bucharest Riz.
It's that area. The Transylvanians are a little bit more Germanic in their, they're more Hungarian. Well, there's a lot of Hungarians.
Little less gay, I bet.
I don't know. There's a lot of Hungarians there. Hungarians got that steep gayness when they're out there with their horses and shit, you
The
know?
steep gayness. What is?
Out there alone on the steep, you know, and
Yeah, all right, that's
right.
fair. It gets cold out there. It gets cold
Right.
out
Those
there.
poor goats.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
man, those poor goats.
like some of them
Steve, I remember him well.
enjoyed Vlad Spikes, you know. They're like,
Yeah, right.
oh, they're looking forward to that one, you know.
For about 1 second, and
Yeah.
then, oh God, this has
Yeah.
gone horrible.
But when I was in Timor, the embassy's like, hey, make sure you like let everybody know you're American, okay? Like that's like part of the safety like protocol for the country.
Part of the safety protocol.
And the reason
No.
is because they hate Australians, right?
There
So
it
they don't
is.
want you to be confused with Australians. And the reason they hate Australians, right, is because the Australians recently kind of effed them over, right? So there was this, so off the coast of Timor-Leste on the Pacific, the deep water coast, there's a lot of oil, right, that fell under like the UN borders that Timor-Leste got. Shit
They
ton of,
took the oil.
well, so now it's deep water oil that requires complex like drilling techniques,
Oh,
right? So they don't know how to do it. They don't have the technology, the industrial base to build like oil rigs.
No,
you
man,
know?
just call the ninjas. Just call the ninjas. They,
Right, right. I mean,
yeah,
just
they got
about it.
this.
Don't worry about
they
it. Don't
they
worry
can't
about
do
it.
it, right? And
That's too bad.
when so Australians came up and they're like, hey, we'll dig your oil out and we'll refine it and we'll sell it on the world market for a cut, right? And there was this huge negotiation with the Australians. And during the negotiations, when the Timor-Leste ambassadors were in Australia and something, they found out that the Australians were bugging the process. They were listening into the secret negotiations, and they're basically doing shady ass stuff, right? So the negotiation with the East Timor guys fell through. It was like this huge, like media thing in Australia and in Timor, and they turned to the Chinese because the Chinese said, "See, look at those white people, right? They're fucking they're rob you, right?" And the Chinese are like everywhere in East Timor now. There's like the shopping mall and like the cities and the roads are all built. They're part of the China Road Bridge and Road or whatever program that they do, where they like just
Silk Road or something like that.
yeah. But let me tell you, man, those guys can
Build
build
all the
shit
shit.
fast. Like I was there for I was there for almost a year, and in the time I was there was roads that I was using that were not there when I first got there, but the Chinese put that shit down like with a quickness. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And they weren't letting Americans and Australians bring any industry in or anything. It was hard to get our project stuff in, but the Chinese, like, yeah, you build it, take it. They were bringing in boatloads of stuff, and like construction.
You just do stuff.
Because they just do stuff, and then they charge them like 10 years later,
Right.
While,
It's fine.
we have like, well, we'll build you a school, but it has to be a humanitarian school and you have to have girls to go to it and you can't teach religion in it, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. So
Right.
everything that we do is technically, through the UN, and it's very like, you put in a lot of like shackles to it, and
Yeah.
it's easier for them to say yes to the Chinese who are like, yeah, we'll build you a fucking road and then we just get to use it. And then they become a colony of China unwittingly because that's how it works, But yeah, that was a very interesting time in my life when I was, while you guys were being locked down, I was drinking chocolate martinis over at Castaways, overlooking the South Pacific. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, my wife was so mad that she's like, "You missed all the annoying COVID stuff." I'm like, it was great. I was drinking coconut water out of.
It's funny you say that about COVID, because I had my experience was not nearly as exciting and Cohen brother-y, but it was I just got done being sick and I was getting back to work for the first time. So everybody starts locking down and my ass is driving to work every day. It's a little different, but it's just funny to think back to, man. So that whole time I'm doing that stuff, and then my future podcast co-host is fighting ninjas on some
running away from
Eastern Asian
ninjas.
island. Yeah, beating them to death with
Yeah.
Well,
Australians or whatever it is you use.
I almost died, over there, but not because of the ninjas. I almost died because I decided to go on a long hike without any water, and I miscalculated the distance,
Brother.
and it was like 100. It was like a
Classic
hundred.
move. That's a classic move,
Yeah,
man. Just go out
and
of the, hey, it's fine. I got plenty, and you're dead.
the worst part is that
There it
I'm
is.
the medical professional here. I'm supposed to keep these guys alive, And the other guy that was with me was an ex-military guy, and he was a SEER ex-military. I don't know if you know what SEER is. It was a
No.
search and rescue guy. He's the guy that like he teaches like pilots who crash how to survive in the bush and not get
Ah,
caught, right? Or how to
Yeah.
he's an instructor that's what he used to do that in the military. And so we're walking and we're like, oh, let's have a few beers. Let's go on a jog. And we started jogging. They're like, oh, let's go all the way to the water through the jungle. And we went and it was like longer and longer and longer. And then we get there and we realize that on the way back, it's like all uphill through the jungle. And we had no water. And I was like, oh my God, we're gonna die. Like, and we're walking like just one step at a time, like left over right. I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. Like, and this dude, I'm not even like lying. This guy had to be like 280 pounds of like pure muscle. He was a beast. He was a German dude. He was just like
Yeah.
this Gunther of a beast, right? And I was like, hey, bro, if you stop, I can't carry you. Like it's not happening. And we after like 2 hours of this like grueling death march, it was like literally like a POW death march that we were doing. We ran into this old lady.
your very own long march. That's
Yeah,
pretty great.
and this old lady spoke like no English whatsoever. I don't think she didn't speak any Portuguese, so I couldn't use my minor Portuguese like knowledge. And I was able to like beg her for like water, and she gave me a Coke, and I drank that Coke
Oh
so
no.
fast. I was like, oh my God, I was dumb. And we make it back, and like I probably had like rhabdo, and like I was just. I'm going straight to my bed, and I'll see you guys in 4 days because I'm gonna die. That would have been a great way to die during COVID of dehydration in some fucking South Pacific, like island. But hey, the Super Bowl.
Yes.
All
Yeah,
right,
we went
Yeah.
on quite the tangent, didn't we?
all right. That's
Yeah.
welcome to
I
the
was I was really
podcast.
surprised to see all the commercials for East Timor
Yeah,
vacation.
the East Timor ninjas.
Yeah. That was they've really come a long way. I mean,
They
Taylor
did
Swift is gonna have that big show out there.
they did like a
And
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle crossover.
yeah,
No.
yeah.
With my
Yeah, it's
travels
incredible.
through Southeast Asia, I actually became quite an
He
appreciative.
travels in the Orient. It's in the Orient.
Well,
You have to
I
say
would
you
say,
have to say it the fancy way.
you know what? I have had my travels through the Orient, but I would like to say this is travels through the South Pacific, okay?
There you go.
Because I
All
think the
right, good.
South
Yeah.
Pacific is a little bit different than
South.
the Orient,
It
right?
is, it is. And that's classier than just,
Right.
yeah, in the South
I
Pacific.
also spent some time in a country founded by a homosexual Scottish man that I'll tell you guys that about them another time. It's in Borneo, Sarawak, which is like if you like history, you should read about the country of Sarawak, right?
Country of Sarawak.
All right, read
Continuing
it.
with the leitmotif.
Yeah,
Outstanding.
read about that, and you'll see. But anyways, um, in my time in those areas, because it's near Australia, and they're all about the same kind of areas. They're big rugby fans, and I started watching a lot of rugby, and I
Rugby's great.
I like rugby, man.
Yeah,
Rugby's
man, that's a
freaking
great
cool.
sport. It's a fun
I
sport.
I feel like it's such a better sport than American football. Uh, it
Agree.
it's much more entertaining. No homo, but the dudes look better because they're like all like huge dudes, but
Yeah.
they're also athletic at the same time. They're not like all
Yeah.
Yeah.
they're not as roided out looking,
Yeah. They're
A lot of
fast. They're fast and scary,
right, and they're
which is
doing all this stuff
perfect.
without pads or anything like
Oh
that.
yeah.
So
Oh
it's
yeah.
like it's I don't know, man. Like I watched like a World Finals. There it's like the World Finals in the same way like the Super Bowl is the World Super Bowl, but nobody else fucking plays football, so no shit, it's the world, right? Um,
Right.
but it was like a women's rugby finals I watched, and I was like, man, this is pretty cool. I'm really enjoying this. Like I like the speed and the turnaround of the sport a lot more than I do
The speed.
football.
Yeah.
Right. Now, in one of our okay, so I don't like football, all right, and I don't like the NFL. I don't like any. major sports, right? And it's not because I'm some Dungeons and Dragons playing nerd hater, all right? It's not that at all, all right? I tend to like tennis and girls volleyball because I like the outfits that they wear in both those sports, male and female. Like tennis, like male tennis players with the shorts and the glasses and the John McEnroe thing with the racket throw, and that's just baller to me. You know, I like that whole
Mm.
vibe. But team sports in the US, major like team sports, I don't like. And the reason I don't like it, I'm not one of those guys that's like, oh, you and your stupid sports ball. No, it's not that. There's definitely a level of that to it. But what I don't like about it is that the NFL and the Super Bowl represents almost everything that is wrong with the United States. All right, in my opinion. Because
Yeah.
team sports on a league level, sports is supposed to be something enjoyed by common man, right? It's like, hey
Hmm.
man, me and you and the boys from the hood we're gonna start a team, you know, and we're gonna play the dudes from the other hood, you know, and we're gonna ball against them, and then all the locals are gonna
Right.
come cheer us on, right? And in
Right.
the early days of both the NFL or whatever, football and baseball or any of those places, that's how it was. Like the New York Yankees were from New York, and the people that played in the New York Yankees were, well, New Yorkers, right? And it was the
Hmm.
same for all the teams, whether it's football or baseball, right? Like you went and rooted for like you knew the guy that was on the team because you went to high school with him. You know, he was the jock in high school that made it big into the big leagues, you know? Or, you know, and you rooted for your team because there were the dudes from your area. They were your people, right? In the same way the Olympics try, you know, the Olympics still have some of this because you root for the guy from your country, you know? But modern corporate neoliberal consumerism has completely ruined that. The NFL does not represent the people. The athletes have nothing in common with any of the people watching the sport anymore, right? They're not from anywhere. They're not from the places that they play the team sport, right? Like you look at the teams right now, none of these dudes are from there, you know? Like
Yeah. It's all mercenary.
it's all mercenary and it's completely killed that spirit of local love and competition.
Hmm.
When I lived in San Diego, right? San Diego has the Chargers. That's their football team. And people just like were all about the Chargers. Oh, San Diego Chargers, right? And they built a brand new stadium and blah, blah, blah for them and all this crap, right? Well, then they decide to leave because there was better money somewhere else, right? How lame is that?
Yeah.
How lame is that, right?
Hey, Cleveland Brown fan over here. And I know that pain. I know that
Right.
pain very well.
And I look at the NFL, I look at the Super Bowl, and it's a completely deracinated, no, unrooted corporate thing. I don't understand what any of these people are rooting for. They're rooting for like Taylor Swift. I just don't get it. You know, it, Taylor Swift is a great example. She is that. She is a nothing. She is a non-entity of an American, right? She's like
Yeah.
she doesn't belong anywhere. She is not, she doesn't have a local flavor to her. She's a complete and utter corporate entity, right? And then you had that halftime show, which I don't care whether it's woke or not woke or whatever, it looked boring, you know? And if I have to read another piece about somebody going, oh, the blah, blah, blah Kendrick Lamar thing, he was speaking truth to power. Bitch, nobody is
What's
speaking
this
truth to
now? What's
power
this
when you're
now? I
hired
didn't.
to do the NFL halftime show.
Yeah. I missed all that. What's this now?
You
He,
familiar? Did you
he,
hear it, Colton?
yeah, like I was listening to some conservative news podcast talking about it or whatever, and like he dropped some lines calling Drake a pedo. It's like,
Oh,
okay, hang on. Well, like
all right.
the song he did for the halftime show was a diss at Drake. It's like not even his best song or something like that. It was just so he can diss Drake.
Oh,
So
okay.
some rapper beef going on.
Cool. I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
Rap is the lamest shit ever, right? And I say that as somebody that I used to like. I'm not a rap hater, okay? I
Yeah.
I
enjoy
used to like Eminem.
Yeah, I
Well,
mean, rap is fantastic.
When I was, or well, my brother had the whole Eminem head haircut and everything when we were growing up.
well, Eminem was great before he became like a chubby old lady. He became like a Karen, like
Chubby old lady. That's
sitting
great.
there diss tracks on Trump or whatever. Come on, dude. Like it's just lame. It's just
Yeah,
dorky,
Whatever. Shut
dude.
the fuck up.
yeah,
Shut the fuck up.
But like,
yeah, I agree.
we all know rap, like mainstream rap was always manufactured. And looking back, it was all a bunch of pedo gay dudes sleeping with each other and baby lotion and P Diddying each other, But
Oh no.
for a while, rap was the punk of my generation, right?
Yeah.
Like, punk was punk, and then punk died and became corporate. It became like, Green Day and a freaking Hot Topic lameness, right? And I know some people are gonna be, oh no,
Yeah,
Green Day is punk. No, but Green Day was never punk. Shut up. That shit was lame always, or the Offspring or the freaking mid 90s punk bands that were just complete like toy store manufactured, you had rap as like the kind of the last real edgy thing, like people say like, oh, metal's edgy. Well, metal was edgy like back in like 1991, maybe in the 80s, like overall it's like niche. It's doesn't have cultural impact, right? But rap
Yeah.
did have a edgy kind of cultural impact, and it's become such a pathetic, neutered genre now that you have it at the halftime Super Bowl, and it's not even,
Yeah. Ugh.
it's like you're speaking truth to power to who? Like what? You're sponsored by like
It's
Google,
slop.
bro.
It's
Like it,
slop. There's no
yeah.
there's no truth. There's no power. It's slop. It's
Yeah,
just
it's
whatever.
just so like the whole thing, there's just like this whole vibe of like I don't understand how people can be into it. I'm just like I don't get it. Like and what it's sad is that in a way the Super Bowl is supposed to be a cultural milestone, like a an annual cultural thing for
Yeah.
Americans, and it
yeah,
Yeah.
it comes off so lame.
National holiday.
Right, it comes off so lame and manufactured and unexciting and just fake. And we're just like it's just another thing that is like fake and lame and distasteful now,
yeah. I think
And
it's funny that everybody calls it a cultural thing or whatever. My dad, he like read some old article or something, but he would call it wife beating Sunday
right. Well,
because
it's the day you don't go
that's like
driving.
no, that's the day all the husbands who are angry at their team lose and beat their wives.
Right. But is there people still angry at their team
So
losing? I mean, like, is it their team? Because
I
it's
don't
not
even
their
know,
team.
but like
I
that's what
don't.
he would always call it, and I'm like, yeah, it's kind of dumb.
They're
Yeah.
they're
It's freaking
they're
dumb.
angry at the team losing in the same way they're angry at their fantasy football team losing. Like there's
Oh
no
no,
real
like for example, like
connection.
everybody was making the meme or whatever. It's like Philadelphia if they lose, Philadelphia if they win. It's like on fire on both
Yeah.
pictures.
That's just
Right.
It's
Philadelphia though. That's
Yeah.
yeah.
That's actually that's like probably the best part about it still. The fact that like some people are still out there burning something down. I mean, it means like there's
Yeah.
at least some meaning to it in a
some
way that,
emotion in there,
yeah.
you
Yeah,
know.
guys, are you celebrating the Philadelphia win? No, man, it's Sunday.
Right, right.
What are you talking
I
about?
respect that, because it shows a level of passion, and because
At least
ultimately
it's
that's what
honest. At least it's honest.
right, that's what sports is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a release of our warmongering aggression, and you got to burn something down over something stupid, or else you're going to
Yeah.
be out there burning something real instead, and
Yeah, Alex, I gotta ask you. So you guys are talking about, we're shitting on professional sports. How do you feel about the NHL? How do we feel about ice hockey? Because I feel like that might be one of the few places where you still have that. It's getting
uh,
worse, but you still have that long-term kind of guys dedicated to the
I
club and like people get
you know,
really
I
attached.
I kind of
Mm,
joke that a hockey
what do you
game
think?
breaks out in the middle of a fight or whatever.
Oh man. Yeah.
right. Well,
The
But
classic joke. The classic joke.
so it's interesting. I grew up in Southern California, right? And surprisingly for everybody that doesn't know hockey history, Southern California, had the Los Angeles Kings, which
Yeah.
was
oh
Wayne Gretzky's team, right?
Yeah.
So
wow, okay.
hockey for a while was really big in California. We
Yep.
even had a local team in Long Beach called the Long Beach Ice Dogs. We used to go to all the time.
Oh,
When I was in middle school, we had this like thing where like we started everybody started ice skating for a while. It was like the fun thing to do. So there's all this ice skating.
Yeah.
It's like 90 degrees outside and we're ice skating on the inside. I never really got into it in the same way I never really got into football. but I can see it being a lot more uh, insular and the teams mattering more to the local areas. It hasn't gone as mainstream corporate as the NFL and the NBA, and the
Yeah,
NFL
I
NBA
think
are the two bad ones.
yeah, I think it might be going that way, but like I think about hockey teams, and for me, I got into the NHL. I was living in Columbus when the Blue Jackets opened up, and I got a job at a restaurant that was only there because the Blue Jackets were going to be there. Um, and then after that, started following other teams. Like there's guys that are still associated with their team,
Right.
and when a guy moves teams, it's still like, ooh, that's a major deal. That's news. Like it feels like it still matters. I think for me, what gets me with ice hockey is that you still have guys that they're playing it because they just fucking love hockey.
Right.
It's just, yeah, let's go. It's there's still love of the game.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. It's probably going the
It's,
corporate
it
direction.
seems
I
like
mean,
it.
Christ, Las Vegas has its own team now, for crying out loud.
Right. I
But
mean, like
they're fun to watch though. So I mean, whatever. But
all sports are sadly going that way. I mean, boxing is dead because of the cheating and all the
you know,
backhanded stuff to it, and the NFL is basically the Walmart of sports, and
you know, to tie it back to Papua New Guinea, it's like it's just cannibalizing at this point, but without the fun like ancestor trip.
right, right. I mean,
It's just cannibalism. It's
can
not even any
people
good.
can people afford to go to football games and
Oh
stuff?
no,
Like
no.
how is that
I heard a ticket to the Super Bowl was like 4 grand, and that
right?
was considered cheap.
Like
Your team, like when the Panthers won, prices went through the roof. Like my wife and I were looking to go, and we were looking forward to it, and then they won, and it was like, well, we're never affording that again.
right.
So it's almost like you got to root for the bad teams.
Right, and it's the same with like with music concerts, which were, concerts were a an integral part of a few generations of Americans, from like the
Yeah,
60s on. Going to concerts was like what you did, the Detroit Rock
yeah.
City thing, you like
Your first concert, big deal.
right, I mean, I
Yeah,
I
go
was
see a
fortunate
show.
because I grew up in Southern California where every band came through, like you get to see like, in the 90s, in the early 2000s, I saw Pearl Jam twice, like in the same week because they came and they played in Los Angeles, and they played in Orange County, then they played in San Diego, and you could literally, if you had the money, you could go to all three in the same week, right? Um, but I mean, even then, when I was growing up, they were like 40, $50 for a ticket. Now they're like fucking like $300 and shit for a ticket, or like $1,000 to go see Taylor Swift, and it's like, come
Yeah,
on, man.
everything's inflating, man. Even video games, like I remember back in the day, it was like 20, $40. Now it's like 60, 80, or 100. I'm like, oh my god, bro.
Well, it's
All for
destroyed.
some, all for some code on Steam. Like, come on, it's not
Right.
even a case anymore and stuff like that.
Well, they're talking about that, but the new Grand Theft Auto 6 is supposed to be $100. That's going to be the new price point for a new video game,
Bruh,
a hundred
screw that,
dollars. Yeah.
bro. Screw that.
Yeah, but it's removed the price point to these things, and it's removed an entire like like the generation, like your generation, Colton, and younger people than you. They can't afford to do all the stuff we used to do. The rite of passage stuff. We can't afford to go to sports games because they're so expensive. Can't afford to go to concerts because they're just impossibly expensive.
Yeah,
If
can't
if
afford college. Can't afford a lot of things, man.
Right. And then here we are, we're cheering about some fucking commercials on TV. And it's like, you know what? It leaves a disgusting taste in my mouth. It's just like, I want to go back to Timor-Leste and hang out with the ninjas, like at least those guys are for real, as opposed to like, these guys making,
Good old fashioned rivalry. That's what the Timor Ninjas
yeah.
are.
And like, if I'm going to pay $2,000 for a ticket to see guys, hit each other, I better see a decapitation.
Yeah.
Like that's what I'm like.
Hey, what are what are plane tickets to Timor these days?
I don't know. You have to look it up.
I'm just
You,
saying
you,
Black Ibis get together. Okay,
you can do
that's
you
all I'm
can
saying.
do
yeah.
yeah, we can
You,
go out there, and
do
we can
you all
open.
remember? Do you all remember when Elon Musk was like challenging Mark Zuckerberg to
Oh,
a
that never
fight,
happened,
and
did it? That never
no, it
happened, did
didn't.
it?
But he was wanting to do it in the Coliseum and everything, or something crazy like
Oh
that. I
man.
was like, bro, it's so
I don't know, man. I think Zuck would have beat his ass because Elon's kind of pudgy and Zuck's got all roided out. He looks
Yeah, he got shredded.
he got shredded. He's like beast
yeah.
mode now, you know. You know who I think would win is the guy that used to own MySpace. What's his name? Remember that guy?
Yeah, our
He was
first friend.
your first friend on
Our first
MySpace.
friend. I don't
I
even
think that
remember the
guy
name.
would
Tom.
Tom. Yeah, he needs to
Tom
come
something,
back.
right?
He needs
Yeah.
to come back. He's going to become the next president. I think Tom should be
you,
president,
you
man.
know that's still around. You know, it's like that kind of fell off the radar when Facebook hit or whatever, and then
Yeah, it
it's
is
just
so.
been yeah.
I had to go back on MySpace and find my password a few years ago
Oh
and delete a
God.
bunch of stuff on it because I was like, ooh, it needs to go away. I don't
Is it
need
still
to.
a thing?
Uh,
Yeah, I think 12-year-old
Amazing.
me is still over there somewhere.
I think the Russians bought it or something.
Wow.
No, that's LiveJournal. The Russians bought
The
LiveJournal.
Russians.
Yeah, LiveJournal became
Yeah,
like
no.
a Russian prostitution site or something like that, you know? Um,
Oh, good Lord. This looks terrifying.
yeah.
It's still just like picture vomit. Amazing.
It's like a music site now or something, right?
Is it? Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I mean, it's like the front cover was, or the front page was Tom York.
Yeah, it's all
Yeah, it's all
geosite.
music now.
It's all like a geosite's website.
Oh
You got
no,
like
this is horrible, guys. This is how far society has fallen. Sign in with your Facebook account to find friends who are on
oh,
MySpace.
but
Oof. Oh no. Yep. Nope. Yeah, guys, just cannibalize me
right.
and enjoy the trip. All right, that's kind of
alrighty.
where I'm at.
I'll
That's kind
I'll
of where
eat
I'm
his
at.
arms. You eat his legs.
Perfect. Delicious.
All
It's like
three of
whatever.
them.
But it's wild, right? I mean, what was another
So
website? Do you
disappointing.
remember? I mean, Colton, you're a baby. You probably remember any of this stuff. What was another website that we used to go? What was that? Rotten.com. Do you ever go on that, Visto?
No. No.
It was like the one that had like all the deaths and like car accident pictures and stuff.
Nice.
If you
There's
got,
a, you know what's great? You know what's fantastic? My old Halo website, halo.bungie.org, is still the OG from like 2001. It still uses the old BBS forum and everything. Oh, there hasn't been a post in days. Ah, fantastic.
I wonder if
It's just a record now.
I wonder
This
if
What
is
my
was your
live
crazy.
favorite
journal's
one?
still out.
Which one?
What was your
Yep.
favorite Halo?
Oh, Halo 3. Halo 3 all day. The best one
Okay.
by far.
All
Far
right.
and away the
Yeah.
best one.
Yeah, that one was really good. I really liked. I actually liked ODST and Reach after that too.
ODS2 was solid. Reach is where it kind of started to fall off for me. I felt like they phoned it in with that one, but like Halo 1 through Halo 3 is
Yeah.
Are you-
I'll fight to the death. I will fight ninjas with knives.
Halo 3 was great. Are you gonna name your first kid Cortana if it's a girl?
No, I'm gonna name him John. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna name him John. I will absolutely not name a child Cortana ever in my life. Absolutely not.
It's like those people that name their kids like Khaleesi or something stupid like
Ugh,
that. You're like,
gross. No.
horrible.
And I mean, at least if I named him John, like nobody would know that was a reference to Halo. It would just be John.
Right. Well, or isn't that the main
have
character?
have his middle name be 117.
Ugh, gross. Disgusting.
That'd be dumb.
It would be dumb. Very dumb.
I had this kid come across, it was like this 19-year-old girl, and I don't remember what her name was. And it was really weird. It was like a fantasy name, right? It was like one of these names that was like made up. I was like, "The fuck kind of name is that?" Right? And I asked her like, "What's your name? Like, what's the nationality?" She goes, "Oh, it's from like some books my dad read. It's like some Dungeons and Dragons thing, and she's named after some like Forgotten Realms like elf girl
Oh, no.
character." And it's like,
Bye.
but she was like not gamery or geeky at all. You know, she was like this like super valley girl, and I was like, poor girl. She's fucking named after some wizard in fucking Dungeons and Dragons fiction. You know, like fucking Drizzet's girlfriend or something like that. You know, and I was like, oh, geez, like you're gonna have a bunch of dorks like creeping up on you for the rest of your life. You know, trying to get you to go to the Renaissance fair and stuff. It's, yeah, it's horrible.
One thing that I find very important is, you know, my wife and I are trying to start a family, and we thought about names, and the implication of the name is important.
Absolutely.
How is the child going to be made fun of? What are the typical, nicknames? What are like, because you don't want to curse them with something like that.
Right.
I mean, like, dad, like, mom, dad, I've been having furries chase me for the last 30 years of my life. What the hell is your problem?
Right.
Like that is a
Right.
curse. A bad name can be a curse.
Right.
100%.
And you gotta be weary of those. Like there's that trend in the last decade where a bunch of Midwestern white people and decided to like invent their own names, like Michaela with like a H and a G or something like that, or
Right.
all
And
those
then
like.
have it, yeah. And then you have, 40 something teachers like me mispronouncing the shit out of your name because you decided to spell it like a
Well,
retard.
it was just basic ass Midwestern white women were jealous
Or
of
you
like
have,
they're just
Koltin
jealous of
with a
black
K and
people.
an I.
Yeah,
Right. The
it's
Q is
basically
silent. The Q is silent.
yeah,
Yeah,
no,
what the fuck? No, you
yeah,
just
no.
misspelled your child's name. That's all you did.
It's my theory is that a bunch of Midwestern like white women were jealous of all black people names because they got to
Right.
invent their own names. So they're like, we're gonna invent our own names too. K-Lig with an H, and
Yeah.
then like Starbucksia or something like that. And it was just
Starbucksia.
it was like like
Starbucksium. There you go.
it's just like you fuck man, like, you didn't do that to your kid. Like you name him fucking Fisto or something. Like. It's like Jesus, like I named my daughter a weird first name, but a very traditional middle name. But the weird first name is not that weird. It's very historical, and it goes back to the Renaissance, and it's kind of
The historical's fine.
yeah.
Historical's good.
There's like a lot
Yeah.
of history and like some mythology to it. Um, One of the names I thought about naming my daughter was Imogen.
That's not a bad one.
Which is a Shakespearean name. I think Shakespeare might
Yeah.
have invented that name, and it's pretty nerdy. But then I was like, that's a little bit out there even for me.
Yeah.
Imogen in high school. She was from England. She was hot. I mean,
Right.
that's my
That was
Imogen equals hot. That's pretty much my.
what kept me from doing it was too Anglo, to be honest. And
Oh, that's fair. That's
yeah,
fair.
I needed
You gotta keep that Bucharest Riz.
right. But she got
Riz.
she got an Anglo middle name, which was very. Her middle name is Elizabeth, so it's like. It's very Anglo and
You can't get more Anglo than naming your child after a fucking queen.
right,
And
and
like
so,
one of the big ones too.
right. So that's what it had to be. But I like some of the weird. Like I feel, in my opinion, this is my opinion. Don't go. I feel that with girls, you can get weirder with names. They can have one weird name, whether it's the first or middle. They can have a combination, right?
Yeah,
So
you gotta sneak a strange middle name in there and it's fine. Like
yeah,
it's
you
just,
can.
that's the artsy flowery kind of.
Yeah, you can get away with
Yeah.
naming your daughter Fern or Willow or because I mean traditional names that we consider pretty traditional now, like Heather, they're named after plants and stuff, like trees, right? Hope, Joy, they're all kind of like gimmicky names when you think about it, right?
Yeah.
But they work with girls. It's gimmicky names don't tend to not work with boys, in my opinion. Boys should be named Robert.
Robert,
Like
William,
Alexander, Robert,
Richard,
William,
Alexander,
John.
yes,
Yeah, like
John, James.
it's got to have some power. It's got to have like some girth to it. Where you're like,
Yeah.
hey, Robert.
Gotta have some moxie
Yeah,
or
Yeah, right.
something.
Like I don't know. That's my
This
opinion.
this guy's name. He's got a penis.
Right. You got to
Very
be
much
able
so.
to. You got to be able to open a history book and be like Theodore. There we go. Look at all these Theodores doing based ass shit the whole time.
Right.
Or just make it Roman for no reason. Theodorus.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Augustus.
No, because then you look like a
Augustus.
Roman weeb. Like I knew a guy whose name was Rex. And now he's like it means
Ugh.
king. I'm like, yeah, you're a douche.
Yeah, the Romans hated kings, bro. Well done.
Yeah.
You just owned yourself. Good job.
Right.
That name was hated in the Romans. They
Because
hated the word Rex.
you don't want to name your kid something that like looks like he picked his own nickname. Those guys growing up, Fisto. You always meet those guys that like named themselves. Like they like pick their own names, right?
You're talking to a guy that goes with a pseudonym.
No,
Okay?
no. But you don't.
You're getting a little close on there,
no,
guy.
no, you don't go by that in like parties and stuff.
No, I don't.
Like
I definitely don't.
These
No.
are the guys that like nowadays. nowadays are trans, but when I was
They
growing
call me
up,
Ace.
yeah, they're like, yeah, my name's Spider. Motherfucker, nobody calls you Spider, you bitch, right? Like, shut up, like Spider. The only
Theodore
nickname,
just knocks that dude out with a beer bottle.
yeah, the only nicknames that are acceptable are ones that are obviously named by your dude friends to make fun of you,
Right. Yes.
like fucking Droopy or something like that, or you're Sleepy, like all those like Mexican gangbanger names, like, hey, what's up, Sleepy? Like fucking like Droopy or something. Like that's the respectable nicknames.
Yeah.
Smiley or like because you got like a retard grin on your face all the time, or Drooly or something. Like
Pampers because you wet yourself that one
yeah,
time.
yeah. That's a real nickname because
Yeah.
it's not good.
It's insulting.
Yeah,
It's
but you're like,
insulting.
oh, my name is Spider. That's what they call me at the goth club. It's like nobody calls you
Steel.
that. Nobody calls you that, Steve. Shut the fuck up. You work
Oh,
at a
it calls you that, Steven. Shut
yeah.
up.
It's like
It's
like,
always the
it's,
Stevens too. I don't know what's up with that. Why are the
yeah,
Stevens always the
I knew
guys?
a guy or two like they called themselves DJ, but like that's because they didn't like their first name, like Donald or something goofy like that.
I mean that's fine.
I don't
If,
know.
if it's initial, you can be like, yeah, my name's like P
Yeah, initials
something.
are
Yeah.
Initials are
AJ,
fine, right?
PJ. That's a good one.
But don't call yourself something cool. Yeah, they call me fucking, Maverick.
Terminator.
Maverick. It's like nobody calls you that, sir. Nobody calls you Maverick.
Sir, this is a
Okay.
Wendy's.
Yeah, it's like, dude, nobody calls you that. Okay, you can't pick your own nickname. It's just not cool. Like you're not a
No.
Maverick. Okay,
How y'all
you
liking the Gulf of America?
the
Oh,
what?
jeez. Speaking of picking names,
The Gulf of Buckies.
All right.
Gulf of Bucky's is what it should have been.
That's
I
just
actually,
that's just silly boomerism. Like it just I don't even care about that. What was it called, the Gulf of Mexico, anyways? What's the
right.
history?
No one even knows why it was called that, but now all of a sudden we're all thrown up in arms about it getting switched to something else.
Yeah, like was it always called that? I mean,
Well,
there's
I don't know. I think everybody's trying to say, "Oh, this was Mexico." Like somebody pulled up a map saying, "Oh, this is Mexico," and I'm like, "That's like a picture of Spain." I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
Like
I mean,
I don't know.
it's some kids asked me this in class today, and I'm like, listen, I'm a historian, all right. I don't get too upset about names on a map changing. All right,
Yeah.
that's just how it works. All right. I remember growing up in school, seeing maps on the wall that had Soviet Union on it, and it's fucking 1995. Nope,
right.
that is
You,
not a thing
you
anymore.
got
It's just it's
a
whatever.
map with Yugoslavia on it.
Yeah, yeah, right, exactly. Nope, that is no longer a thing, my
You're like,
friends.
what? You're like, what the
Oh
fuck is
yeah,
that?
and then you get back in the 1400s, they didn't even have maps. They called
Yeah,
it a map,
exactly.
but like
Yeah,
it's like squiggly lines on a paper. Like I think this is India. It's freaking Florida.
Yeah,
yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
there's dragons over here and a
Uh,
basilisk
this
over
guy,
here.
this
Okay,
guy, his
okay, that
castle is
was dope.
here.
I'm not
Yeah,
gonna lie, that was dope. That was dope on the old maps,
Giants
the
yeah,
over
dragons and
here.
stuff.
yeah.
I mean, it makes perfect sense. It's exactly how things used to be. Like don't go too far.
Random naked dude.
Yeah, there's barbarians out there.
Yeah.
Hey Colton, man, we completely didn't talk about anything that we thought we were going to talk about, like usual.
Welcome to the podcast,
Yeah,
brother. Welcome to the
Thank you,
podcast,
thank
friend.
you.
I had all these questions planned for you about, you being a 27-year-old grown up and I got sidetracked with the Super Bowl and somehow we ended up in South Pacific and talked about baby names, which is why I love doing this podcast, to be honest, because it's great. But we are approaching our over 2 hour mark now. We've
Just
actually
over.
gone
Yep.
long.
We can go for another two. No, I'm playing.
No, I'm good. I
Bro,
gotta
I
go.
gotta go to bed. Like,
I gotta go wake
you
up
got
at
that
5
Zoomer
a.m.
energy, man.
Yeah, it
Ugh.
is an hour later for y'all, so
Yeah,
no problem.
and I'm an old man, and then Fisto, he's basically on death's door. He's so old,
Yeah.
man. He's got.
I literally have a foot in my coffin right now as we speak, just in case I need it, just in case I die on pod.
No,
Just right into the
I gotta
coffin,
go play DayZ, dude. I gotta go get murdered
slam that
by.
door shut.
Alrighty, no
I
problem.
got
Yeah.
to.
But
Thank
Colton,
y'all for
so
having me on, man.
of course, man,
Yeah,
you're
man.
always welcome back, man. The door's always open. We've been looking forward to this. We made, you know what? You know how much we like you, Colton. We actually recorded on a Tuesday instead of our usual Wednesday, and we did it 2 hours later than usual. So
Something
Oh,
I forgot to mention, something I wanted to bring up.
I
It's
thought
actually
that would
kind
have
of
been
fun.
easier for y'all, man.
Oh no, it's great. It's fine. It's
Okay.
it's
All
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
All right. All
but
I'm just
not.
messing around.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
y'all.
yeah, yeah. We're just giving you a hard time. Late night. That's your nickname now. No, I'm kidding.
Late night.
No, but Colton, it's fun. I mean, just to like reminisce real quick, and then I guess we can wrap it up. You were one of my first early follows on Substack, and it's like it's funny to think that with you and Alexander, and like how long has been Substack been around? How long has Notes been around? It's like it's only been a couple of years at this point,
Yeah, like
right?
I was one of y'all's. I was one of your first followers on Notes,
Yeah,
pretty much.
it's funny to think about how the
Yeah.
platform has already changed and grown, and
Yeah.
like some of the early lore, like oh my god, the Shannon
Yeah.
Party jokes, and then like uh William Spengler, the dude who's yelling, and, like just some of the hilarious shit that popped up.
That
Like
the
you
Will
don't,
Martin guy.
oh
It's
my
like,
god,
yeah,
oh
freaking
oh,
retarded.
say the line, Will, say the line. Oh, it's so good.
So I
But
think
but it's funny, guys, to see like that early internet kind of, the early weird shit that pops up that no one's ever gonna know any of that happened. Like no
And then
one's,
that John
Substack.
Exum moment.
Oh,
Y'all are
dude,
y'all
that
y'all
guy.
were y'all were going off on the pod. That was hilarious.
Oh, so funny. Or like Substackers against Nazis, what we talked about at the
that
like
that was
that shit.
Yeah.
that was our proudest one
Forgotten.
of our early proud moments when that was shut down quick.
Yeah, that was so great.
I think our enemies right now are the carpetbaggers.
The slop
The,
merchants,
the
Yeah.
the slopper baggers.
oh,
Beto O'Rourke coming in from out of nowhere,
right.
getting blue check mark.
Yeah, we got the slot merchants, and
Yep.
then we got the carpetbaggers that are like, oh, you guys should moderate yourselves because we're trying to do things the right way. Shut the
Yeah.
fuck up. Go away.
I felt so bad for that one dude
Yeah.
who was like, "We're gonna keep the toxicity off Substack." The fuck you are,
Shut
buddy.
up, retard. Like
It's like
no.
that's real tough talk for somebody within revolutions
It,
distance.
Right.
I like that idea. It's like, did you guys notice that there's a lot of right wingers on? Like, yeah, dude, we've been here since day one, right? Like
Yeah,
we were,
it's called Substack, bro.
Yeah,
yeah,
like
It's just Substack.
I
It's
almost, I
like
almost,
Philadelphia on fire. That's just how it is, all
yeah,
right?
I almost
Relax.
reached out to the guy. I was like, bro, I think we were here before you, bro.
yeah.
What are you talking about?
Like how I think
Get
my
off my
Substacks
turf.
from
No,
like
I mean, like, go gangster, want to
I
be gangster or something.
I definitely started to Substack. Uh, I think like the first month it went live,
Yeah.
because I now that I think about it, I was actually in I think I was drunk off of like 8 or 9 gin and tonics in Papua New Guinea when I started it.
No, really?
Yeah, and if you
That's
look at if
amazing.
you go to my archives and you go to like those first few posts, they're all like weird like island shit from like Papua New Guinea.
Yeah.
Like
My
there's
oldest one is holy crap, May 21, May 2021.
yeah, way back in the day.
That's my oldest one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
mine's a little deceptive because I migrated from Medium actually.
Mm.
It's
Ah.
some other Substack thing or whatever, I guess. But like yeah, they were like super woke over there, like saying water was racist and like all kinds of crazy crap,
Water's
man.
super racist, bro. Absolutely.
Yeah,
It's in my body without my consent. No, it's like
I,
dumb stuff like that or something.
yeah, I had a
That's funny.
WordPress site that I kept for all my writing and stuff, and I honestly just got tired of like maintaining the WordPress stuff, and like
Yeah.
it didn't really have a good like chat setup, like a good like I wanted more interaction with people. And when Substack popped up, I was like, it seems like the same thing as what I'm doing on WordPress, but a lot less effort on my part. Like I can knock out, I don't have to use a third party thing for newsletters or anything like that. So I was like, yeah, I'll do that. So I migrated a lot of my WordPress stuff to Substack when it first started, but I kind of picked some of the big stuff that I liked, and I left a lot of the stuff. I think my WordPress site is still out there somewhere in the labyrinth in the ether. Um, all right, guys, we're gonna
Anyway.
call it a night. Next week, well, so this episode will be premiering Thursday morning, as
All right,
usual.
dope.
And
Fantastic.
next week we have the friend of the podcast coming back on again. Our boy Isaiah, right? Fisto, I think that's what
Yes.
we're doing, right?
Yes.
And we're gonna
The
talk
glorious return.
yeah,
Wait,
of
Isaiah
Evanson.
Evenson?
yes,
That guy?
Evanson. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
yeah, Yeah, and we're gonna talk about what I wanted. Well, I wanted to talk about orthodoxy a lot. We didn't get
Yeah,
a
sounds
chance to,
good.
but he's
That'll
gonna.
be fine.
He said he's watching that movie I recommended. Colton, you go to church, right? You're a church guy, right?
Yeah, 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 I am.
You what denomination do you rep?
I am a Pentecostal.
You're Pentecostal. Okay. All right. Well, I love all denominations. Okay.
I
Because I
hate all
think, yeah,
dominations,
me
so
too.
it's
I mean, no,
balanced. I'm just kidding.
obviously
I'm just kidding.
being an Eastern European, I'm Orthodox, but I'm not one of those. Everybody must be Orthodox eventually. The, I'm not a denomination war kind of guy. I think it's dumb. But
Yeah.
Isaiah is really interested in it, and he's been doing a lot of reading on it. And there's a fantastic movie that I believe is probably the best Christian movie of all time, uh, behind The Passion of Christ. I think The Passion of Christ is a masterpiece. Even when I wasn't a Christian, when I was in my atheist phase, I thought that Passion of Christ was great. But the movie I'm talking about is The Island, which is a Russian movie. It's kind of it's tricky to Google because when you Google The Island, you get the movie that's based on the novel, which has nothing to do with that. So you have to Google Russian movie The Island, and you'll get it's about basically a holy fool that he did something really cowardly, and because of that, he secluded himself on a very remote island at a very remote monastery with a bunch of Orthodox monks. And
Hmm.
he's a holy fool. So there's some things that appear to be miracles, or they're not miracles, or maybe. But I think that movie, out of every movie I've seen my entire life, has the best example of a demonic possession from a Christian perspective of any film I've ever watched. And
Hmm.
it's a masterpiece. It's in Russian. It's not an exciting movie, but it is a great example of high Christian art, in my opinion. So I always recommend it. I know Alexander Halen has seen it, and he likes it a lot also. I've had a lot of friends that have seen it and they've enjoyed it, even though they're not Orthodox. So it's a good movie. I want to talk about that a lot next week. And then, you know, just local churches and that kind of stuff. Isaiah is a kind of a local to my area, so him and I know that a lot of the local kind of environment, even though he lives about 2 hours away from me in a bigger city. But yeah, that's what we're doing. And then we've got some other stuff planned. We've got another friend of the pod coming on, by the way, Fisto.
Yeah, who's that?
The famous Noah Reimer. I don't know if you follow
What's that?
him. He's a writer. He's
It's ringing a
young,
bell, but I can't think of it.
young Baudelaire.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah, right. He was one of my
Cool.
he was one of my first guests. He is one of the most fascinating dudes ever. He is a young guy. He's younger than you, Colton. He's a young college guy, and he
Oh,
is
cool.
a deep thinker, man. The guy is a great writer, and he's always doing like newsletters and all. Like the man had put together a small press and that doesn't do digital. He just did straight up. He sent me like old school hand stapled like books, like
Wow, cool.
poetry books, and he is a great writer and he's really popular. A lot of people love his stuff, and I do too. And he was probably one of my first few guests, and he left Substack for like a year because he's like, oh, I just want to focus on my writing and stuff. And he just recently came back like a few weeks ago and he hit me up. He's like, hey man, you still doing the podcast? And he's like, I want to come back on. And I'm like, yeah, sure, man. We got a lot of cool people planned for the future, man. So it's going to be great. We're probably not going to talk about anything that I write down. That seems to be the rule. I'm like, oh, this is my list. We're going to go on a 2 hour divergence about video games. You know what? Here's a thought. I'll leave you with a thought, right?
All right.
Good.
What is
Do it.
it about the middle era of video games that fell flat? I've noticed that early video games like the Nintendo, Super Nintendo era have tons of memorable, amazing games. And then this era has a lot of really good stuff. The last two generations.
Hmm.
But that PS1, Nintendo 64 era, it's unbearable. You can't play them. They're unplayable. You know? we all have good memories of GoldenEye, but it's not a playable game anymore. I don't think it's like it's ugly and it's like it hurts my head to even think about playing that. I think that early 3D era fell really flat, and it does not have the longevity of Super Mario Brothers, for example.
I I don't know. I almost think it could be just the graphics, but I could be wrong. I could be
Yeah,
wrong.
that could be it.
I never played those old games. Like I said, my first game was a PS2 game. So
Right. I mean,
yeah.
like Final Fantasy VII, everybody loves it, but it's ugly. You can't really play it. You know what I mean? Like it needs
And
to
then
be
but yeah, like it used to be Bomb, and then they made a remake of it. So I almost feel like they're cannibalizing all these older titles and stuff.
right. Like
Especially at Capcom, like they went back and remade all the Resident Evil games and stuff like that.
right, right. So I think graphics has a big era. I feel like in that era, the PS1 era, they had some great ideas, but the tech wasn't there yet to
So,
really
Yeah.
so
knock it out.
I guess what really uh really what it is they had better writing because when
Right.
your graphics are trash, all you have is writing.
That's
Because
true.
I feel like everything they write now is either, I mean, especially here recently, it's like either woke stupid garbage or it's just not good,
Right.
you know?
Right. It's just not good. Yeah.
And then sometimes even when you have good writing, if you have a cruddy voice actor sometimes, it's like, bruh, oh my God. No.
Right. I should teach
It's
I
myself.
think
like,
I
why am
think
I teamed up with this guy? I just want him to die. No.
Right. Right. Like I hate these characters.
you know, I think a lot of it maybe has to do with the a new art form like that. You've got people taking really imaginative leaps. I guess the thought I would leave with you guys is probably my all-time favorite game was Homeworld. You guys ever play that? The space
Yeah.
real-time
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
strategy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Got some properly mystical shit going on. Like, man, you know, people don't make that anymore.
Right.
And maybe it's just the early, it's like film. You have
Yeah.
this unique combination of elements
Yeah.
Right.
You would
that
have
come
to
together.
dig through like some indie games. Like
Yeah.
one indie game I like is this game called Kenshi.
Yeah.
K-E
Indies where it's at. I always forget that. Indies where it's
Yeah,
at these days.
Kenshi. It's like a RTS game set like okay, it's just a unique game, but it's like a mixture of steampunk and
Hmm.
cyberpunk-ish kind of, but it's like on a different world. It really is. It's hard to describe because it's its own thing. But like your character can get their limbs cut off, and then you get cybernetics and like all this crazy stuff. But like it's on a post-apocalyptic planet
Hmm.
or whatever. And
I'll
if you
have to
like
look
dig
it
it,
up.
yeah, if you like dig into the lore, it's like on its third apocalypse or something. It's actually what I based my Glass City short story on, kind of.
Hmm.
I mixed that game with a little bit of Fallout, and kind of like inspired it or whatever, I
Nice.
guess.
Yeah. No, I like
Uh,
that story too. I read that story and I liked it
oh,
a
you
lot.
did? Oh,
Yeah.
awesome, awesome. Did you
Yeah.
read the? I'm sorry. Did you read the Western I wrote or whatever? I
I
know.
did. I did too. I liked all your stuff. I
Oh,
enjoyed.
thank you. Okay.
I am I'm a, if by the way, for everybody that is every single person that ever comes on, I read every single bit of thing you guys post on Substack. I
Awesome.
the reason I always like push out everybody's like you're like I'm like hey I'll book you and then like I'll do it like a month ahead is because I spend like the entire time like contrary to popular belief, I do run things professionally. I actually send questionnaires to all my guests. That way I
Yep, he
talk.
did.
Right, I
Yes.
do things really. I
Can
try to
confirm. I read it myself. It
right,
was
and
exquisite.
that's months ago. And I make sure I read every little bit of media that's put out by you. Even Kevin Kautzman's last week, I listened to every single episode of The Art of Darkness, mostly because I'm a fanatic fanboy, but I probably know more about him than he knows about himself because I've listened to the stupid podcast for 2 years straight. But yeah, but hey, it's really late, guys. I need to call it a night.
All
Once
right, buddy.
again, thank you guys for coming on.
All
For
righty.
listeners, if you guys enjoy listening to us have these conversations, Please like, share, subscribe. Once again, there is a paid option that I would very much appreciate you subscribing to. The paid option is going to get you special, unique episodes of me talking about deeper dives into things. Me and Fisto probably will be doing some deeper dives into things, specific, more focused topics on the paid episodes as opposed to our general discussions, which is the bread and butter, which is the fun part of this podcast, in my opinion. And please call me stupid or whatever on the comments because I know I got a bunch of stuff wrong all the time.
About us, bro.
Yeah.
Feel bad.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
We do it. Fucking retard. But for
Come at me.
for,
Come at me.
yeah,
Shut
for
up, retard.
yeah, for all the
Yes.
listeners, thank you for coming. Thank you for coming on, Koltin. Make sure you guys follow Koltin's Substack and Bants online, and we will see you next week. All right. Good night.
Good night, guys.
Good night.